Story 1. Narcissistic mom abandoned me as a teen for her BF who later left her. Now she wants to get back in contact because she's lonely and mad because I'm keeping her far away from my fam. I 25F. I haven't been in touch with my mom for the last 5 years because she kicked me out when I was 20 to accommodate her new boyfriend. My mom's ex-boyfriend at the time, let's call him Rick, was a total gold digger, and he didn't even hide it. My mom had been going out with Rick for about 3 months before she brought him home, and like the idiot that she is, she didn't even bother telling him that she had a daughter before bringing him home. My mom is 50 now, and at the time she had been nearly 45 but told everybody that she was not a day older than 40. It was a blatant lie, but she hid it well with fillers and Botox. I don't know exactly how old Rick was. He must have been in his early 30s or mid-30s, but not older than that, and he was a moderately attractive guy. But my mom is also pretty attractive for her age, so at first, I thought that they were a perfect match. But it was only until he opened his mouth and started talking about how great it was that my mom had so much money of her own. He said that he liked the fact that she was a strong, independent, rich woman, and that's what made him want to be with her. I know that's what he said, but our massive house, spacious living room, and very obviously expensive decoration is probably what really made him want to be with my mother. It's no big secret that my mother was rich only because she had been left a lot of money by her parents. She was an heiress, and that's pretty much all that she was. She had no career of her own, so while the rich part might have been true, I couldn't see how he was strong or independent, because she hadn't had to do a single thing in her life. Her parents had built a company from scratch and made her rich, but after they passed away, the company went to her uncle, and he had been running it ever since. She had absolutely nothing to do with how the company operated, and neither did she have any interest in learning how to run it because as long as she got the money that she was supposed to, she didn't care about anything else. She mostly had hobbies, but she never did anything with any passion or focus to turn it into a real career, and that goes for motherhood as well because I'm pretty sure that I was a hobby for her because she was just bored. And I know for a fact that had it not been for her boredom, I couldn't even have been born because she definitely would have terminated the pregnancy. So I'm kind of lucky that my mother is flighty and indecisive, because that's actually what led to me being born. And I'm also lucky that my grandparents, unlike her, were decent people and raised me in her absence. My mom probably got bored of being pregnant midway and decided that she wasn't interested in being a mother. So after I was born, she pretty much left me at my grandparents' most of the time and would spend the majority of time partying or hanging out with her friends. No joke, as a child, I literally thought that my grandparents were my parents. I have no idea who my father is because my mom got pregnant after a one-night stand and she didn't have any way to contact him, so she didn't. My grandparents, at least, were loving people and never made me feel the absence of my parents. I had never known my dad, and my mother had never allowed me to get to know her, so I basically only had my grandparents and I was content with it for a while. But then my grandma passed away when I was in my junior year, and a couple of years later my grandfather followed. I was heartbroken because I felt like I had lost the only people who cared about me, but thankfully, I still had my uncle, and he did look out for me. Granted, he and I were never as close as I was to my grandparents, and we didn't even talk often, but he told me that he would be there for me, and he really lived up to it. I had never lived with my grandparents permanently. I had always lived with my mom, but I would visit them every weekend. My mom would barely even be at home most of the day, so I was okay with being alone at home after school because it gave me a lot of time to finish my homework and do whatever I wanted around the house. After my grandparents passed away, I moved to college, but I would come back home for at least one weekend every month and for the holidays. It was not because I wanted to stay in touch with my mother, but mostly because I wanted the comfort of my own home, and that was it. If anything, my mother's presence was something that I would have to put up with whenever I came back. My mom had stayed the same my entire life. A shallow and self-centered narcissist socialite who cared about very little in the world. That stayed the same throughout my life, so she was pretty predictable to me. She had had several boyfriends, but predictably enough, she could never make it last with any of them. Sometimes it was just them being insecure because she had an amazing social life and was constantly out with other people, and some of those people happened to be other men. And sometimes it was just because she got bored with them and she dumped them without caring about their feelings. I had met several of her boyfriends, and every time they would break up, I would be able to hear all of the screaming and shouting from my room, since it was just above the living room, and never had she ever tried to make anybody stay because I guess she never cared enough about any of that. But the first time that I was unable to predict anything was when she started dating Rick. With him, everything was different, and it was crazy that she wasn't able to sniff out that he was a gold digger because she was usually great at those things. I mentioned in the beginning that my mother had brought him home for the first time after dating him for 3 months, and it was the weekend I happened to be there. So when Rick saw me and I greeted him out of politeness, he seemed to be really confused because he hadn't expected me. Only then did my mother tell him that she had a daughter, and he seemed really put off by that. But that was only for a second, and then he went back to his usual charming self. But I was able to see through him, and I could instantly tell that he was not interested in my mother. He was just here for the money, and he made it very obvious throughout dinner. He could just not stop talking about how great it was for him that he had managed to find such a beautiful and independent woman and had even impressed her enough to get her to date him. I knew that he was trying to flatter her, and it was working. He put special emphasis on how rich my mother was, because that seemed to impress him the most. And honestly, he could not have been more obvious if he tried. After we were done with dinner that day, my mother told me that she had invited him to stay with us for a couple of weeks because he had just been laid off at work and he needed a place to go before his landlord evicted him. And suddenly, it all made sense why he had been buttering her up so hard. He only needed a place to crash, and my mother was his meal ticket. I wanted to warn my mom, but I usually never commented on her relationships because I thought she knew what she was doing, also because we didn't have that sort of equation when I talked to her comfortably about these things. I didn't say anything because I wanted to give Rick the benefit of the doubt, not knowing that this decision would end up backfiring really badly. A couple of weeks passed, and I didn't go back home until the next month. My mother and I didn't stay in touch when I was at college, so I had no idea how things with her and Rick were going. But when I came back home the next month, I realized that Rick had pretty much made my mother's house his home and had turned the place into a total bachelor pad, and my mother didn't even seem to have a problem with that. Everything was a mess, but my mom told me that there is no reason to worry because the housekeeper would have everything cleaned up by the next morning, and it was fair. But my mother had always been a bit of a neat freak. It was surprising that she was allowing all of this. But I didn't say anything about it because, yet again, I didn't think that it was my place to comment on it. Rick and I didn't have any interactions throughout the weekend, and I barely even left my room, just like every other weekend before that. I only came back home for 2 days, and I had no intention of speaking to anybody at the time, so I stayed out of everybody's way and just minded my own business. The only time I would even go downstairs would be for meals, and even then, I would just take my food and go back to my room so I could eat by myself. Let me just make it very clear that throughout the weekend I hadn't even spoken to Rick. But for some reason he still had a problem with it and didn't like the fact that I had come back home. So the day that I was supposed to leave, my mother came into my room and told me that she wanted to talk to me about something important. That was surprising because usually my mother and I have nothing to talk about, so I knew it could only be bad news, and it was. She told me that she would appreciate it if I didn't come back home after that month because apparently Rick didn't feel comfortable having me around. He said that he just wanted it to be the two of them, and I had completely ruined the vibe being there for the weekend. Apparently, he had believed that he and my mother had a nice rhythm going, and I had disrupted it by coming back home in the middle of the month. He just didn't get that bachelor vibe anymore and felt like he was being suffocated because it felt too much like a family, and he just wasn't ready for that yet. I could tell that he had been bluffing about all of it. He just wanted me out of the way and was coming up with weird excuses to accomplish that. It was extremely insulting because this was my home first, and he was the one who was ruining the vibe by being here and messing up the place. So I decided to ask my mom when he was going to leave because he was not supposed to stay here permanently. She had said that he would just live here for a couple of weeks until he was able to find a new job and get back on his feet. Unfortunately, that was not the right thing to say because my mom flared up and said that it was none of my business. She told me that it was her house and I was an adult, so I needed to clear out and stay away because she was serious about this guy and whatever he says goes. And if he wanted me to be gone, then she would make sure that that's what happened. I didn't even try to fight it because I knew that it was pointless, but I did tell my mother that Rick was nothing but a gold digger and she was going to regret kicking me out for him. She didn't seem to care, and neither did I, so I packed my things and left that day. For the next couple of months until Christmas, I didn't go back home because clearly that was not my home anymore. But when Christmas rolled around and the winter break started, students were not allowed to live on campus anymore. So I decided to talk to my uncle instead. We had kept in touch, but we were not close, so it was really awkward for me to ask him for help. But the dorms were closing for winter break and I needed some place to stay. My grandparents had made sure that I had a college fund set aside for me, so all that was taken care of, but they hadn't anticipated this. So when I called my uncle, he told me that I could live with him and his family for a while. I was really grateful to him and always will be for opening up his home to me and making me feel like a part of his family. We connected, and he also told me that the reason he had never tried to build a relationship with me was because of my mother. The two of them didn't have a great equation growing up, and he felt weird trying to talk to me or make me a part of his family because he felt like that would offend his sister or something, and he just didn't want the drama. So as long as I was taken care of, he decided that he was going to stay out of the way. But now that his sister had kicked me out, he had to get involved because he couldn't allow me to be homeless or something. We had a real heart-to-heart conversation, and yeah, since then, he's been my only family. His wife is the sweetest woman I've ever known after my grandmother, and his kids are basically the brothers that I never had. After that particular Christmas, I started spending a lot of time with my uncle's family and basically became a part of it. After I graduated from college, I needed a place to live for a bit until I found a job and had money of my own. And that's the time that I found out that my mother and Rick had broken up shortly after she kicked me out. I didn't know the exact reason why, but most people said that it was because Rick had been cheating on her with another woman. It was ironic because she had kicked me out so she could live a different sort of lifestyle with Rick, but as it turned out, all that had been for nothing. Eventually, however, my mother is an egoistic narcissist, so she obviously didn't reach out to me to apologize after the breakup, and I'm glad that she didn't because I had nothing to say to her anyway. We were done here. After that point, my uncle and his family were the only family that I had. I never had needed my mother before when my grandparents were alive, and now that I had my uncle, I didn't need her anyway. Years have passed since then, and I have not been in touch with my mother for a really long time, and a lot of things have changed for me as well, because now I'm married and have a child of my own. 2 years ago, I met my husband, John, 27M, at this job that I was working after graduation. It was supposed to be a short stint, and I didn't think that John and I would end up together. But here we are 2 years later with our daughter. My daughter was born just 3 months ago, and I already love her more than anybody else. She is the joy of our life and makes it all better. And that's why I made the grave mistake of posting about it on social media. Throughout my pregnancy, I kept it all quiet, and nobody apart from John, my uncle, and a few of my close friends knew about it. I had never been too big on social media anyway because I'm a strong believer in the evil eye. But after my daughter was born, I just couldn't help myself, and I felt like I had to announce it to the world. That turned out to be a mistake, because that's how my mother found out that I was pregnant and I had already given birth and finally reached out to me after 5 years of not being in touch. This happened last week, and I had mixed feelings about it, honestly. She reached out to me through an email and told me that a couple of my family members had told her about the baby, and she said that she was desperate to meet her granddaughter. It was a long email, and the first thing that I did was check if she had apologized to me at any point. But unfortunately, she hadn't. It was pretty true to character and on brand for her to harp on and on about how difficult life had been for her after her breakup with Rick and how she still has trust issues from that terribly toxic relationship. She talked about how lonely life had become for her because now everybody that she used to be friends with earlier had families of their own. And even if they didn't have a family, they had other hobbies and work to keep them busy. But that's not how she had lived her life, and it was difficult for her to get used to this age. She complained about how lonely she was all the time because she didn't have any family to talk to ever since I left and her friends were all too busy for her all the time. So now she wanted to fix things with me and, I don't know, get back in touch. She said that she was sick of spending every day alone and she was getting older, so she just couldn't do this anymore. She needed me to accept her back into the family again. That email, while it was sad, did nothing to melt me because I had decided that she was not going to be my mother a really long time ago. Pretty much the day that she kicked me out for her boyfriend. And yes, it was upsetting that she was sad and lonely now, but I didn't owe it to her to make her feel like she was part of a family again. She had had her entire life, 25 years, to make me feel like I was a part of her family and I was really her daughter, but she didn't do it. She was always too busy with her own life, and now I'm busy with mine. She never treated me like her daughter, so now I'm not obligated to treat her like my mother. It's as simple as that. And that email was infuriating. Not even once did she think it was necessary for her to apologize for what she did. It was ridiculous that she had written one whole page about how she was suffering, but she hadn't even spared a thought about how difficult it must have been for me to have a mother who didn't care about me. Yes, I was lucky that I had grandparents who loved me and an uncle who was looking out for me, but that doesn't replace my mother's love. For years as a child, I used to wonder why I was not good enough for my mom, and I tried everything to win her over. I didn't give up until I was in middle school, and I finally realized that it was not a me problem, it was a she problem. But the years before that, I would never get them back, and I would never stop wondering why she ever even had me if she wasn't interested in being my mother. There was no apology for any of that, and I could still be okay with that, but she didn't even think it was necessary for her to apologize for what she did 5 years ago by kicking me out of her house. She knew that it would have been difficult for me because I wasn't very close to my uncle at the time and my grandparents were long gone, but she didn't seem to care about any of it. She only cared about her and Rick and their happiness. After reading that email, all the anger and frustration I had been allowing to build up inside of me just bubbled up to the surface, and I, instead of just ignoring the email, decided to respond to it. And let me just tell you guys, it was not a nice email that I wrote out to her. I called her all sorts of derogatory names, and I said that she was not even fit to be a part of society, let alone be a mother. I said that I would have rather preferred being an orphan than being born to somebody like her who had no respect for herself or anybody else, and said that she had deserved Rick because, just like her, he was also shallow and stupid and selfish. It was a pity that the two narcissists didn't end up together because they really should have. I said that I was never going to allow her to meet my family because we might be related by blood, but I had nothing to do with her, and I wanted to keep it that way. I sent a very angry email without bothering to hold back. And of course, my mom was pretty shocked and upset because of it. Within a few hours of that email, I heard back from her and she said exactly what I had thought just a few minutes after sending that email. She said that if I was that mad at her, then I shouldn't have responded to her email at all instead of saying that horrible things to her. She told me that she knew she had made a lot of mistakes as a mother, but this was her trying to make the situation better between us by reaching out to me after so many years and trying to be a part of her granddaughter's life. But if I didn't want that, I could have just said so instead of taking things so far and saying such horrible things to her. And honestly, I feel like a kind of jerk because of the things that I said, and it wasn't even as though I had used nice language in that email either. It had been a really nasty, curse-filled email, and I really regret sending it. I could tell from her response that she was very upset and angry, and I feel kind of bad because I know for a fact that she is really old and lonely now, and that email couldn't have been easy to receive. I feel like I owe her an apology, but at the same time, I don't want her to get the wrong idea. So, am I the jerk, AITA, for sending my estranged mother a rude email after she reached out to me after my daughter was born but didn't apologize? Update 1. Hey, thank you so much, guys, for all the love that you guys have shown us. My daughter is doing great. Thank you for asking. John and I discussed the whole email with my mother, and we came to the conclusion that I do not owe her an apology. Maybe what I did was unnecessary, but it was not wrong. She had treated me like a stranger all my life, and now suddenly, since she was old and lonely, she wanted to play happy family with me because she had nobody else to turn to. None of that was fair, and what's worse is that she didn't even think that she needed to apologize to me first for what she did. So now she can sit and complain all that she wants, but it's not going to change the fact she was a horrible mother, and I'm glad that I got rid of her. I don't think I would ever want to go back to being in touch with her, because even when I did live with her, it felt like I was living with a stranger. I never considered her my mother, so it would be really strange for me to introduce her to my daughter and call her grandma because that was right. That was a right reserved for family, and she was not family. She never had been. I also talked to my uncle and aunt about it, and they feel the same way. They told me that I had no reason to feel guilty because my mother pretty much brought this upon herself. She has been disconnected from her family her entire life, not just for me, but also for my uncle, and he thinks it's fair. I might have gone a little overboard with the email, but she shouldn't have expected anything else when she reached out to me 5 years after kicking me out of her house and then demanding to see my daughter. She didn't even bother to apologize, which is something that I will never forget or forgive. But anyway, I'm willing to let sleeping dogs lie and forget about the whole episode because I'm genuinely not interested in her drama right now. Now, the only thing that I want to do is be there for the one person who actually needs me right now. My daughter. I can't do that if I'm engaging with my mother and trying to argue with her or trying to show her that she's wrong. It's pointless anyway, so she can continue to send me nasty emails. They're all gonna spam anyway, and I won't even have to open them or read them. Update 2. So, I don't know why, but my mother thought that it would be appropriate to pay me a visit just 2 weeks after I told her that I was not interested in making things right with her. I was at home today because I'm on maternity leave right now, and John was out for work, so I didn't think much before opening the door when the bell rang, and unfortunately, I didn't check who it was outside because it was around the time that John usually comes home from work, so I just assumed it must be him. However, it was not him, it was my mother. I'm guessing that she must have asked some stupid relative of mine for my address, and they, like idiots, revealed it to her without thinking about the consequences. But as soon as I saw that it was my mother, I mustered all the strength that I had and shut the door. She was taken by surprise because obviously she had expected me to let her in since it was rude to kick somebody out once you had already opened the door. But I didn't care about being civilized or polite. I just wanted her away from me, and I was going to do whatever it took to accomplish that. She started screaming at me from the other side once I had locked the door and went absolutely ballistic. I was about to call the cops already when she decided that it would be a good idea to throw a rock through my glass window. So she did that and immediately ran away. Thankfully, my daughter was in her nursery, and I was the only person near the door, but even I remained unscathed. The only thing that suffered, unfortunately, was my window. I called the cops immediately and pressed charges against her. So now I'm just waiting for this to blow over. She was not at all happy and kept screaming at me about how unfair I was and how ungrateful I was. But honestly, I was just glad that nothing happened to John or my daughter. This was serious, and somebody could have gotten seriously hurt had they been at home. So John and I have decided that we are going to file for a restraining order against her, and we are going to have to act soon. We have also spoken to my uncle and told him about it so he can take the necessary actions as well and amp up security around his house. Update 3. Hi everyone. So my mother got 6 months of community service and a huge fine that she had to pay for what she did. She also had to pay us for damages, and we were able to shell out quite a substantial amount of money from her. Honestly, if you ask me, she was only able to avoid any imprisonment because she is very well connected and her lawyer is a shark. But anyway, that's none of our business since we got the money and also the restraining order. So for now, we have nothing to worry about. John and I had been considering moving to a bigger house anyway, and we think we're finally going to do it now. It's just going to be me and my family. Wish us luck, you guys. Now on to the next story. Story 2. My younger sister is marrying my ex of 7 years, who cheated on me multiple times. Now, they want me to be maid of honor in their wedding. Jake was my ex-boyfriend, who I dated for the last 7 years. We first met each other when we were in college. He was the charming guy with a disarming smile, the kind that could make your heart do a little dance. We eventually started hanging out and got to know each other better. We had a lot in common with our hobbies and goals in life, and we clicked well with our humor. In a few months, we had started to officially date each other. Day to day, and throughout the relationship, he was very loving, caring, and attentive. We never argued about money and supported each other's goals. He looked after me when I was sick and was attentive to my needs. He told me quite early on in the relationship that he never spoke with his dad because his dad had cheated on his mom and left his family. He also had a poor relationship with his mom and avoided seeing her as much as possible as a result. He always had a terrible self-image of himself, appearance-wise and goal/life-wise, from a very young age. He had this burning need to be liked and get approval from most people. I tried my best to help him feel better about his image, but his struggle became worse and worse. He eventually decided to quit university altogether. After that, he was constantly in a spiraling bad mood about his esteem, image, and self-worth. There seemed to be little I could do to help him change his mind, as I felt he also compared himself to me. When I graduated from university, I was offered a very good job and even got promoted twice in the space of 2 years. He used to comment that he never felt good enough for me. I feel the above context is more than likely related to why he always sought after quick gratification or an ego boost from other people. Throughout the course of our relationship, he cheated on me multiple times. The first incident occurred within a month of us being together. He went away to a volunteering camp, something he does multiple times every year. While he was there, he was on Tinder and talking to a girl. I noticed a change in his behavior when he returned, so I asked him about it. He was evasive, so I decided to investigate. This is how I found out that he was chatting with this girl online and had exchanged inappropriate messages with her. I confronted him and expressed that this was not acceptable to me. We had a conversation about our boundaries, and in the end, I decided not to blow it out of proportion, thinking that he was going to change. The second instance was when I discovered that he had continued to maintain contact with his ex-girlfriend throughout the first 4 years of our relationship. He consistently sent her complimentary messages, praising her beauty and making small personal comments like, "I always thought your braces made you cute, even when you hated them." When I confronted him about it, he justified this by claiming she had low self-confidence, and he wanted to help her feel better about herself. The third instance occurred when he was showing me something on his phone, and a notification popped up from a girl. I wouldn't have thought much of it had he not quickly dismissed it while saying, "Don't worry, she's ugly." A strange comment to say about a random girl texting him. Later, when he was out, I snagged his phone for a moment and saw some affectionate text messages that they had exchanged. I couldn't read them all before he snatched the phone back and deleted everything. He kept insisting that she was just an old friend, claiming he had never talked to her in so long. He apologized and blocked her, so I decided to dismiss it. About a month later, he started to fabricate a story about going to dinner with his sister, but I could tell that wasn't the case. He lied to my face when he got back, talking about how well his sister was doing and so on. However, thanks to Google, I knew where he had been. He had clearly been on a date and stayed at her place until 1 a.m. I waited for him to come clean for about a week before confronting him, but he didn't. I hinted that I knew something about his so-called meeting with his sister, and I was giving him another chance to tell me the truth on his own. Knowing that he was caught, he finally admitted to going to dinner with a girl he met online but denied going back to her place or paying for the dinner. I essentially fed him the proof I had, but he kept denying the whole truth. The next time he cheated on me was about 4 years into our relationship. We had become quite open with our messages when using our laptops or phones near each other, but when it came to this particular girl, he avoided opening her messages on Facebook/WhatsApp when I was around. Once again, I questioned him, and he insisted nothing was going on. Trusting my instincts and knowing his past behavior, I decided to snoop once more. To my dismay, I discovered he was sending sexually explicit messages to her, expressing a desire for her to be dominant, a role he was reluctant to let me play in our intimate moments. Confronting him, he broke down, apologized, and promptly deleted her from his contacts. In the wake of this revelation, he also admitted to struggling with a porn addiction. I was shocked to hear this and decided that it was time to attend counseling to address these issues. We had a few sessions, attempting to delve into the root causes of his behavior. Our communication started to improve, and the relationship saw positive changes. Unfortunately, when he secured a job, we had to halt our sessions. His job had him working on-site, which was pretty far away, so he was away for 5 nights every week. One weekend when he returned, perhaps tired from the trip, he wasn't as careful in hiding his tracks. I saw a series of calls he had with 2 different women every day he was gone. Again, I waited, this time for 1 whole day, to see if he would tell me what was going on himself. When he didn't, I confronted him. He immediately denied any calls were made, asking, "Do you have proof?" Though I didn't have proof at that moment, I knew what I saw. The next night, when he fell asleep, I did a deep search on his phone and luckily discovered all of his texts with both girls in the trash bin for the past 30 days, since that's all the trash bin will hold. He had spoken to them the same way he spoke to me and promised them all the things he tends to promise me. He told girl number 2 that she was the perfect girl for him and that he wanted to take her out for dinner after he was back. Now I had the proof to confront him about it. The next morning, I woke up to him crying next to me. At first, I thought he had found out that I had found the proof, but he told me how he had a bad dream about us breaking up and was upset, thinking I was going to leave him. My eyes narrowed suspiciously, and I opened up all the texts he had with those girls. I read them aloud as he sat there crying and expressing his regret. This time, I was so pissed off that I started to laugh reading his messages aloud, because I couldn't believe how someone who keeps saying that they love me can continue to cheat on me so many times. How could he even lie to my face? I felt like if I didn't get the proof, he would have continued to deny these allegations, and I might have never found out. We had a huge fight, and I was ready to leave, but then he went down on his knees, crying and begging me that he loved me and how sorry he was. He told me that he was sick and he couldn't imagine his life without me. I genuinely loved him, and every time he cried, it broke my heart. Despite all the pain he caused me, he continued to claim that he just couldn't help himself but wanted to work on his issues. He went on to tell me that he loved me and that he couldn't wait to marry me one day. Even though I knew he kept making me a complete fool whenever he cheated, lied to my face, and broke his promises, I really did want to believe him. Part of me did think that we had come such a long way and built a life together. We have been through a lot together and supported each other through some rough patches. But at the same time, we also had a lot of fun together. He makes me laugh every day. I always felt like I would be letting go of so much. Hence, I decided to stay and told him that this was the very last chance he had to prove himself. He started to work on changing himself. For 1.5 years after that, we had a magical relationship. He didn't sneak around with his phone anymore and genuinely made an effort for us. But suddenly, in the last year of our relationship, I noticed his mood taking a dip again, and his behavior started to change. He stayed up late on his phone, became withdrawn, and then suddenly shifted to being overly affectionate. This continued for about 2 weeks, and my gut feeling told me something was amiss. Despite not snooping since our counseling sessions, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One day he went to the bathroom and left his phone under his pillow. When I checked, it was open on the screen used just minutes ago. To my surprise, I discovered a new Discord account where he was chatting with 8 random girls and one friend he had been speaking to online. I had previously inquired about this friend when he communicated with her daily, around the time I started my new job. He had explained to me she was just a girl from Reddit he had met on a friend-finding subreddit. However, I found that they had been chatting for a long time, and he had revealed to her everything about our relationship. He had also sent her videos from his side, but she had never shared any images. Hence, I had no idea what this girl looked like. I was so pissed that we had a screaming match. He accused me of violating his privacy by checking his phone, and I accused him of using me throughout our relationship. He finally admitted that he had developed feelings for this girl over the past year, and was starting to get emotionally involved with her. He told me he would have confessed to me eventually, as he wanted to break up with me anyway. I couldn't believe what I was hearing as he continued to tell me that he wanted to see if he and the girl could have a future together. Throughout our relationship, despite all the pain he had caused me, I had always clung to the hope that things would get better for us. We had gone through cycles of making up and breaking up, each time thinking it was the last. But now he was leaving me for a girl he had met on Reddit. As I sat there looking stunned, Jake went on to express that he felt it was only fair to both of us to end our relationship, as he couldn't continue a relationship with me while having these conflicting emotions for someone else. Hearing his words, I felt tears in my eyes as I was forced to come to terms with the fact that the relationship we had built over 7 years was now crumbling. We broke up, and I felt every kind of emotion. Lost, scared, angry, and like I had been used. Despite the pain, my heart couldn't help but ache, torn between the love I had for Jake and the way he had betrayed me. The betrayal, my sister and my ex. Flash forward 5 months post-breakup, and while I'm still trying to heal and move on, my younger sister announces that she is getting married. I was shocked to hear the news, as I didn't even know that she was dating anyone at the moment. When I asked her about it, she invited me out for lunch, telling me that she was going to tell me about her fiancé. I agreed and excitedly waited for the day to come so I could see my baby sis. When the day finally arrived, I met my sister, Lisa, for lunch. She seemed over the moon as she gushed about her fiancé, sharing stories about how they met and fell in love. However, as she described him, I became increasingly suspicious, and my heart sank when she finally mentioned his name. Jake. Yes, Jake, my ex-boyfriend of 7 years, was her fiancé. I couldn't believe it and asked if she was joking. My sister, a lovely woman, has always been selective when it comes to relationships. Despite being popular in high school with many admirers, she never rushed into a romance. She chose to remain single for many years. Hence, I just couldn't believe that she had decided to date and now would be marrying my ex. Growing up, I was always close to my sister, but due to our 7-year age gap, I couldn't bring myself to tell her the exact reason for my breakup with Jake. In reality, I felt ashamed of what he had put me through, and I was certain that if she knew the whole truth, she wouldn't be going through this. I started to ask her if she even knew what she was getting herself into. She smirked with an air of superiority, telling me that she knew exactly what she was getting into. My brows furrowed in confusion as she revealed that she had been texting him, the mystery girl he claimed to have formed emotional connections with. My eyes widened in shock as I realized that she was the woman behind our breakup. My sister went on to explain how they had stumbled upon each other's Reddit pages and started talking. He knew all along that she was my sister but still chose to engage with her inappropriately. She mentioned that it had been 5 months already since my breakup with Jake. Hence, she expected me to have moved on by now, which was why she had decided to reveal her engagement to everyone. She continued, stating that when she disclosed the engagement to the rest of the family, they insisted that she talk to me first. Their directive was clear. My attendance was crucial in her upcoming wedding to show my support in front of everyone, or they would not be attending. I maintained a calm exterior, hiding the turmoil within. As if this wasn't enough, Lisa then dropped another bombshell. Jake and she wanted me to be their maid of honor during their wedding. I felt a mix of shock, anger, and disbelief hearing her words. They expected me to put on a facade of acceptance to showcase unity and happiness, when in reality, I was grappling with the shattered remnants of my own heart. The whole situation felt like a twisted joke on me. She started talking about how it would mean so much to them if I could do this for their special day. I left that conversation with her feeling utterly broken and betrayed. Since then, I've been torn. On one hand, I want to tell both of them to go to hell, but on the other hand, I don't want my family thinking that I'm still bitter after the breakup and can't handle it. What if this becomes the gossip fodder for the next family gathering? Oh, she couldn't handle it, poor thing. Hence, as you can understand, I am grappling with mixed emotions and wondering how I would handle a situation like this. Despite my love for my sister and genuine happiness for her impending marriage, I am unsettled about the choice of her partner. The idea of actively participating in their wedding and witnessing the ceremony is weighing down my heart. While I am hopeful that with time I will overcome these feelings, I am uncertain about how to navigate this situation. So, here I am on Reddit trying to decide if I would be an a-hole by telling them no, or will I be judged? Update 1. The intervention. I haven't talked to my sister since our meeting last month. She has tried to reach out to me several times, but I am unable to make up my mind. Last week, she and Jake sent out their wedding invitations. I didn't RSVP because I honestly don't want to attend. Yesterday, my mom asked me to visit her, and I agreed, thinking that it was just going to be me and her. When I got there, Mom was waiting with my sister and my aunt. It was an intervention. My mom started by saying that it was important for me to attend my sister's wedding and that I should stop alienating myself from everybody. She told me that my sister was getting married and I should stop being so selfish. In turn, I told her that I was not comfortable watching my ex-boyfriend, who had cheated on me multiple times, marry my younger sister. I questioned her if she was even aware of his history, because the list of times he had cheated on me was never ending. Hearing this, my sister started to cry, saying I'm trying to ruin their relationship by making up lies. She asked if it had to do with the fact that I was not dating anyone at the moment and suggested that she could pair me with one of my ex-BF's single best men, so I wouldn't feel lonely during her wedding. I was furious when I heard this and told her firmly I didn't want to attend her wedding because I didn't like the fact that she was marrying the worst guy I have ever dated, who broke my heart throughout our 7 years of relationship. She continued to cry, accusing me of being bitter and a hag, claiming I intended to hurt her because of my jealousy. I left after this. Later, my mom called, saying that if I didn't show up at least as a guest, I would be cut off from the whole family. They need me there to show everyone there are no hard feelings and that I have blessed their marriage. My sister has been facing criticism from the family for what she has done to me. I am so angry right now. What's between my sister and me seems to be broken beyond repair. Why is it so hard for them to understand? I love my family, but I am tired of them choosing my sister's side. I know Mom is serious about cutting me off if I don't attend. Update 2. The final confrontation. Before I provide an update, I want to express my sincere gratitude to everyone for the valuable advice and suggestions I have received. While some of you suggested planning revenge for my sister's wedding, I must apologize because I simply don't believe in such pettiness. I have come to realize that the only hurt I have been feeling was because of the way my mom has treated me throughout this ordeal. Since my sister announced her wedding, I have felt that my mom has let me down by not thinking about my emotions and what I'm going through. At the end of the day, I can't control who my sister or my ex ends up marrying. If my sister wants to marry Jake and believes it will make her happy, then I am no one to stand in her way. However, I decided to make one last attempt to mend things with my mom and explain how her actions have hurt me. Last Friday, I visited her while she was alone at the house. I started by expressing my hurt about the intervention because I didn't think I needed one. I shared that it hurt that she always took my sister's side and explained my many reasons for not attending my sister's wedding. I told her how my relationship with my sister had changed and couldn't be normal anymore because I couldn't see myself being anywhere near my ex. I don't feel obligated either to try and repair her reputation in front of our relatives by attending her wedding. She has chosen to make a very controversial life choice by marrying my ex-boyfriend, knowing that I had dated him for so many years. Hence, she must have known already that people will give her a hard time. But if she really loves him, then honestly, she shouldn't even care about their opinion. As I spoke, I noticed my mom getting more and more upset. After I finished, she told me that she was right in thinking that I'm a vindictive hag, that she's ashamed of me and that my bitterness is the reason, and I will end up alone in the end. She told me I was pathetic for not attending my own sister's wedding and was so stuck up with my own ego. I started to cry hearing her words, as I knew I didn't deserve to get so much hate from my own parent. Her words hit me hard, and I walked out of her house, promising myself that I would never contact her again. I was feeling so down for the next few days, and as if this wasn't enough, I received an email from Jake. I had blocked him after the breakup, so he had not been able to reach out to me through calls or messages. Hence, he had decided to send me an email. In the email, he poured out apologies and tried to justify everything. He claimed he was really in love with my sister, like that's supposed to make it all better. He went on about how he couldn't control who he fell for and how he's changed. It was infuriating to read, especially after all the pain he put me through. Jake's audacity knows no bounds. In his email, he had the nerve to tell me to shove my feelings aside and be there for my sister's big day, as it would mean a lot for her. Reading that line just fueled my anger even more, and I am even more convinced now about my decision to not attend my sister's wedding. Update 3. Moving on. It's been 3 months, and although my last update might have been a bit pressing for some of you to read, I assure you that I am doing much better now than I was last time. Following the fallout after my confrontation with my mom, communication with my family remained strained. My sister continued to reach out to me and force me to attend her wedding. Despite her persistent invitations, I remained firm in my decision to not attend the wedding. The pressure from my family, the fear of being labeled a bitter outcast, and perhaps a sliver of hope for a future reconciliation with my sister had initially pushed me to consider it, but ultimately I chose to prioritize my emotional well-being. The wedding arrived, and from the accounts that have reached me, it seemed that her wedding was an absolute disaster. Some of my cousins and even my grandparents, firmly disapproving of my sister's decision to marry my ex, opted not to attend her wedding altogether. Their absence, a silent protest against the union, sent ripples of discord through the event. My sister sent me a lengthy text abusing me and blaming me for how I ruined the most special day of her life. After that, I decided to block her so I could move on from this ordeal altogether. Since then, I have focused on getting myself back together. Therapy has been a big help, helping me understand my feelings after the breakup and the family drama. Instead of focusing on the negativity and my difficult relationship with my family, I put all my energy into my work these days. As I keep healing, I have found support in friends who have become my chosen family. They understand what I have gone through better than my own blood family. Looking back, I can see how tough times do make you a whole lot stronger. The ongoing process of healing remains a significant part of my narrative, and I am seizing control of it, refusing to be a victim. Now on to the next story. Story 3. BF lied about having a disease for months to get out of dates and gaslight me, then showed up at my job with scissors, threatening to unalive himself when I refused to let him move in. I, 33F, started dating Harvey, 35M, back in August of last year. We met on a dating app. What caught my attention at first was how articulate he was. He was so intelligent. There was just something about the way he spoke, and he listened to me, he listened to what I said. He seemed genuinely interested in what was coming out of my mouth, and he asked me questions. He asked me questions about my life, and about my likes and dislikes, and my passions, and where I saw myself in 5 years. He asked hard questions, and we got really deep really fast. And what I mean by that is that there wasn't any beating around the bush. We were upfront and honest right at the start. He said he wasn't interested in just dating someone just to date someone and waste anybody's time. He said he was looking for his forever. I saw this all as green flags. I had some bad relationships in the past, and I definitely had a type. I was into guys who treated me like, and love-bombed me and manipulated me and then treated me like trash. A little context about how I was going into this relationship with Harvey and some past trauma. About 10 years ago, I had been engaged before to someone who was originally from a different country. He wanted to get married so that he could essentially stay in the country. We met while I was on some volunteer work in South America, and I totally fell head over heels. He actually had a girlfriend at the time that we met, and he said that they ended up breaking it off, but they never did. He came back home with me. I ended up getting pregnant but having a miscarriage. He lived with me and was taking my money and sending it back home to that GF he said he broke it off with. And turns out he actually had 3 kids with her already. Well, I ended up finding out, and by the time I found out, he ended up owing me $30,000. Not only that, but he emotionally and physically abused me, which led to the miscarriage. But I truly believe everything happens for a reason, and it was a blessing that that never worked out. Then there was a boy that I had grown up with in my hometown. He treated me like absolute garbage, and he ended up actually going to prison. Anyways, these are all stories for another time. So that's all to say that I've been burned. And so, with Harvey being so kind and honest right from the start, it just screamed green means go to me. I had never met anyone like him before. He was really good at communicating. If I ever had any doubts about anything, he'd say, "No, we're talking it out and we're not going to bed angry." He'd call me or text me every day. He forced me to work on my own darkness. He forced me to talk it out instead of going inwards and hiding. I was happy. I felt like things were really going good, and he was really helping me upgrade in life and be the best version of me. Well, in October, I had noticed that he still had the dating app on his phone because I saw a notification pop up while we were watching a movie and his phone was on the coffee table. This was after we had agreed on going exclusive. He tried to play it off that he just never actually deleted it, and he apologized and deleted it right in front of me, so I bought it. But I ended up bringing it up a week later, and we got into a big discussion on how this won't work if I don't trust him. He gaslit me. He made me believe that all was okay, and that my own insecurities were just projecting onto him, and that wasn't fair. It was basically a dig on me conversation. But I still bought it. At the time, it felt liberating, and what he was saying made sense to me. Then, in December, we were planning on going to Las Vegas for New Year's Eve. Well, a couple of weeks before, he cancels on me and tells me that he's not feeling well. We got into a huge fight, and he then dropped this bomb on me. That he said he had an autoimmune disorder that may have caused his skin to break out into a big red rash, and his skin was all inflamed. He also said that when this happened, his body was so sore he could hardly walk and could hardly eat, sleep, you name it. He wouldn't even let me come and see him during this time. He just took photos to sort of prove that he was telling the truth. He said he didn't have the energy to see anybody at this time. He also said he would be working from home anyways. So I let the Las Vegas thing slide. Luckily, we were able to cancel the flights, but instead of a refund, we ended up getting a credit. This will come into play later. So I let that slide, and then there were quite a few times in January to March where we had planned a date, and he would bail on me the night before or the day of. He'd say he wasn't feeling well. He'd blame it on his autoimmune disorder. He said he had planned this beautiful Valentine's Day date for me. There are these botanical gardens that you can go to, and they offer a moonlit dinner. But come the day of, I was supposed to be picked up at 6 p.m., and at 4:30, he said he wasn't coming because he wasn't feeling well and needed to rest. He said he'd make it up to me later that week. He didn't want to see me at all. Well, later that week, on the day that he had rescheduled, he was supposed to pick me up at 6 p.m., and around 3 o'clock, he texted me and said that something came up at work and that he wouldn't be able to see me. Then we got into a fight about how he wasn't prioritizing our relationship. Then he brings up that he was too ashamed to admit that he couldn't pay for the date and didn't want me to be paying for anything because he's been so sick and has missed too much work. He said that something actually did come up at work with one of his clients, and he said that he couldn't pass on this opportunity or else he'd lose his job. He said if he didn't do the work tonight, that it would have severe repercussions. And I was like, well, I can just come over and we can watch a movie or something while you work. And he said that it doesn't work that way. He said also he was too embarrassed to see me, and again he said he'd make it up to me. He said once this contract was done, he was going to take me out for dinner. And I said, we don't have to even go out. We can eat in and have a date inside. He's like, you deserve the best, and I can't do that for you right now. And so I was like, are we breaking up, then? And he said, no, God, no. I just need to finish this job, and then I'll be back in good graces with my clients and my boss. I was like, okay. So then, at the beginning of April, it was my birthday and he had planned to take me out. Well, you guessed it. My birthday came, and I actually didn't hear from him all day until about 4 p.m. He calls me and he says, happy birthday, and he's acting all nice, and then suddenly drops this bomb that his skin has flared up, so he doesn't want to go out. He apologizes and said that we can eat in at his place. I was so eager to see him that day that I just agreed and went over. Well, he complained that his whole body was so inflamed that he wasn't even going to be able to eat. And yeah, he looked red. His skin didn't look great, but I didn't want to eat by myself. It made me feel like, then I kind of had expected him to be huggy and intimate with me, and maybe even get some, if you know what I mean. Nope, nothing. He sat on one end of the couch and I sat on the other, and we watched some stupid movie. I got pissed off and I said, why am I even here? And he's like, it's your birthday. I wanted to see you on your birthday. I'm sorry I can't make it special, blah blah blah. And then I'm like, you haven't even touched me. I haven't even gotten a hug. And like, I was sort of expecting to be intimate with you tonight, since it's my birthday. Then he says, it hurts to move. He said he would kiss me if he could, but it would hurt too bad. And I'm like, really? It would hurt your lips to just keep them there. And then he got mad at me for not understanding. And then he said that he doesn't want to be intimate because his skin condition even affects his downstairs. And I was like, yeah, whatever. So I got up to leave, and then he stops me and brings me this gift bag. And he's like, wait, just open this. So I open it all pissed off, and it was tickets to Hawaii for the end of April. And then we do end up kissing and making up, but for like 5 minutes because he said that's all he could handle. So I'm like, Harvey, you have to be serious about going to Hawaii. Because if you bail on me, I'm still going without you and we're over. The moment you text me or call me to bail will be the last time you hear from me. And he goes, yeah, that won't happen. This is what I've been waiting to give back to you. You deserve the world. I'm so sorry I can't be what you want and what you need, blah blah. So I'm like, no, I'm serious. If you bail, I'm going and we're over. And he's like, "'Kay, deal." So literally the 5 days before we're supposed to go to the airport and leave for Hawaii, he texts me and he's like, "I'm so sorry. Please don't hate me. Blah blah. Don't leave me. I'm just not feeling well. I can't go in the state that I'm in. My skin is on fire. I'm sorry to text you like this, but it just hurts to move my mouth and hurts to speak. He's like, I lost my job. I probably have to move in with my dad. I feel like dump. I'm so sorry. Well, I text him back and I'm like, I'm going anyways, and this is the last time you'll hear from me. We're done. And I meant it. I was like, don't try to contact me. Don't text me. Don't call me. And I spent 15 hours on hold with the airline we booked for to switch over the ticket to my best friend, Sienna. So then I end up blocking him because he won't stop contacting me. I went to Hawaii with my bestie and I spent the first few days in the whole flight crying. Then I get this text from a number I don't recognize. It ends up being Harvey. He's like, I know you asked me not to contact you, but I'm just so sorry, and you mean the world to me, and gives me this huge sob story. He's like, when you come back, things are going to be different. Well, I bought into it. I felt lonely. I was in paradise and I missed him. I even ended up getting him a little souvenir. I know I'm weak. Anyways, I end up getting home and he comes over and his face and skin look totally fine, as if he had made his flare-up all up. Anyways, I chose not to say anything. I gave him his souvenir. We have a big, long talk about how he's not going to let his disorder get in the way of us. And then he tries to insinuate that he doesn't want to go and live with his dad, and he doesn't know where he's going to stay, and he's suggesting that his one chair would look good in my living room, and how my place is so cozy and inviting. But I'm not budging. I'm just like, hey, I like my stuff where it is. And he tries to rub my leg and start up something, and I'm pushing his hand away, and I get up to make a tea. And he's asking me if everything is okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just hurt. And he's like, you're going to let me live on the street? And then I'm like, whoa, where did this come from? And he's like, well, you aren't saying anything. You haven't even asked where I plan on staying. And I'm like, you told me before I left on a trip that we were supposed to be on together, that you had planned on living with your father. And he said, I can't go back and live with my dad. I'll lose my mind. And I'm like, well, you can't stay here. I understand that your autoimmune disorder makes it hard to do daily activities and to work sometimes, but that's not my responsibility. You're so flaky. Why would I want to live with someone who is as flaky as you? And then he gets up and he walks over to me and he's like, this disorder is out of my control. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, why are you blaming me? Why can't you help me out there? And I'm like, you need to help yourself. You constantly bail on me. I can't trust you to pay bills or clean up after yourself in my space. I own this house. It just comes down to the fact that I can't trust you. And then he starts calling me names and crying and saying that I'm making him homeless. And he's got a dog. And he doesn't know what he's going to do with his dog. And then I'm like, this really is not my problem and not my responsibility. Then I tell him to get out of my house. And he's literally sobbing and hyperventilating. And he keeps calling me all night, sends me about 200 text messages. I end up blocking him again, but he ends up calling and texting me from different numbers, and some of them are unknown, so I just turn my phone off. Well, the next day I'm at work. I'm a receptionist, and he comes into work right at 9 a.m. when the office is open to the public, and he has a pair of scissors in his hand, and he's holding them up to his neck, and he's crying and screaming, and he falls to the floor right in front of my desk. And he's saying things like, I'll end it all right here in front of you, and for all the world to see. I call the police and they come and arrest him. Then my boss calls me into the office before the end of the day, and she lets me go. I lost my job. She says, we can't have stuff like this happening here. And she said I put people in danger, and they're unfortunately going to have to let me go. Well, that job was my lifeline. I literally have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm still $20,000 in debt because of my ex-fiancé. I'm pissed and honestly in shock. I never imagined anything like this could happen to me, but this guy has totally ruined my life. I wrote this huge thing about him on Don't Date Him. Now I'm here sharing this on Reddit. I'm so done. Not only that, but I got a restraining order against him. I've also had to change my number. It's been about 10 days, and I haven't heard from him or anything, thank goodness. Hopefully he got the hint. So yeah, I have bad taste, but let this be my last lesson. Update. I just got off the phone with Harvey's dad. Apparently, Harvey was never paying for the place he was staying at, His dad was this whole time. And he said that Harvey doesn't have an autoimmune disorder, but he definitely does have a skin condition. He said that he had given Harvey a hard deadline to find a proper job, which he had also lied to me about. Apparently, he was just working really odd jobs here and there, is some techie doing some sketchy, and refused to get a serious job. He said once the deadline came and went, he cut Harvey off and wouldn't allow him to move back home and was forcing him to figure it out on his own. Very interesting. VP dodged that bullet. Hardly. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Wanted to separate from my husband because he refused to get a vasectomy. But something unexpected happened. My husband, 28M, who I will call Jack, and I, 27F, have been together for 4 years. We have 2 young children, and I am pregnant again. I have been pregnant for what feels like most of our relationship. I got pregnant 4 months into our relationship. We got married a month before our daughter's first birthday and ended up with a honeymoon baby. After our son was born, I talked to my OB, and she put me on birth control, and I've been taking it militantly. My daughter is now 3, and my son is 2. A little over a month ago, I discovered I am pregnant again, despite taking my birth control religiously. Abortion is banned in my state, and the pregnancy was discovered too far along to attempt to obtain one out of state. While Jack and I were nervous, we also loved being parents and decided that 3 young kids would be a challenge. But 3 was a good number for us. Then we went in for the first ultrasound and got some unexpected news. It's twins. Things have been tough financially, and while we were stressed but excited for a 3rd child, we were not expecting a 3rd and 4th child. Beyond the finances, I am the primary caretaker, and I know that twins is going to be a lot. 3 children under 5 is already a lot, but 4 children under 5 is going to be really, really difficult for me. Physically, I am tired of being pregnant. I've been pregnant or breastfeeding the majority of our relationship. It's exhausting, it feels awful, and I don't recognize my body anymore. For children is enough. I don't want more. I told Jack that I was done with pregnancy. I've been pregnant enough. I've been experimenting with different types of birth control for over a decade, and I still can't stop getting pregnant. Abortion isn't a valid option where we live. We need something more permanent. He agreed and suggested an IUD. I told him no. If it did fail, then it could cause an ectopic pregnancy, which could kill me, especially where we live. I've had birth control fail me multiple times already, and I'm not taking the chance. So I suggested a vasectomy. He was not open to the idea and was even upset that I suggested it and told me I should get my tubes tied. I told him a tubal ligation is a much bigger surgery, and I could be recovering for weeks, during which time I wouldn't be able to work or take care of our 4 young children, but he could ice his balls for a day or 2 and be done with it. He told me that not getting pregnant was ultimately my responsibility and topped it off by saying, "That's what your body, your choice means. Your body, so you choose." That's when it went from a discussion to a full-blown fight. See, when I was 19, I had another birth control failure with my boyfriend at the time, who I will call Tom. I wanted an abortion. Tom did not because he was opposed. I told him I was getting the abortion since it was my body and my choice, and Tom said some horrible things to me, including threatening me. I broke up with him and got the abortion. In response, Tom ended up following me one night and attacking me. I don't want to go into detail, but it was horrible, and he ended up going to prison for a number of charges related to the attack. Not only do I have a number of scars and some long-lasting physical effects, but I have PTSD as well. Jack knows about my history and diagnosis and has known from the beginning. I have a pretty prominent facial scar, so I was upfront about it early on in our dating. Jack always presented himself as very pro-choice, so I was shocked that he would say that. I got really emotional and started crying and shouting, and it turned into a full-blown fight. Eventually, I said that birth control is a two-way street, and so far I've been the only one managing it. And he said, "And now we have 2 kids and 2 more coming. Great job." I told him he sounded like Tom, and he got super pissed. He basically said, "How dare you compare me to him?" And maybe he might want kids one day with someone who doesn't compare him to her felon ex-boyfriend. I was stunned and horrified. I said, "Well, then let's not waste any fucking time then." I packed up myself and the kids and drove to my parents' place. It's been about a week since the fight. I've spoken with Jack a few times, and he has since apologized and said he was out of line and was speaking from a place of anxiety after finding out about the twins, but also that I said things that were out of line and it was wrong of me to insist he undergo a medical procedure. He said that he can move on from the things I said and that he wants to see his children and be a family again. I told him no, that I didn't want to move on from the things he said to me. I can't just get over that, and I think we need space apart. Jack was upset by this, and while we talked, I brought up getting a separation agreement to manage custody and finances while we figure things out. He did not like this suggestion, said we didn't need to pull the courts into this. I haven't told a lot of people about what's happening but my family and a couple close friends. My sister and best friend both think I should throw the whole man away, but my brother, who is the only other one married with kids, thinks that I'm being extreme for what sums up to a fight between two scared people who both said nasty things. My mom is trying to be supportive but is occasionally reminding me that I don't want to be a single mother of 4 and telling me not to let my PTSD drive my decisions. While my dad is being completely unhelpful. He thinks jokes are helpful, like calling me doorknob, because I can't stop getting knocked up, telling me to let the oven cool down. Real knee slapper. I don't know what to do. My kids are happy to be at Grandma and Grandpa's house, but they miss their daddy. I'm 4 months pregnant and already uncomfortable as hell. I wish I could go back to being a happy little family, but I'm so hung up on the things he said in that fight. Am I destroying my family over one bad night? Am I being unreasonable for asking my husband to get a vasectomy? Edit. I've noticed a lot of people recommending condoms. I have gotten pregnant with condoms twice. Our second child and my first pregnancy were both conceived using condoms properly. Correct fit, put on correctly, single use, not expired, no breaks, etc. I do not trust condoms enough to not fail a third time. I know the failure rate is supposedly small, but it's not personally small enough for me. Edit 2. I'm sorry, I didn't expect so many comments so fast, and I can't keep up with them. By the first pregnancy, I mean the pregnancy with Tom. With Jack, I was on the patch when I got pregnant with our daughter, condoms with our son, and the pill with the twins. So far, I haven't ever suspected that Jack has tampered with our birth control and always presumed that I'm a fertile myrtle. I recognize the comments and just want people to know I'm seeing the suggestion. I'm not dismissing it, but the thought of it is deeply upsetting and has provoked a lot of anxiety. I just wanted to make it clear that if the suggestion is only based on the condoms, that the condom pregnancies were with 2 different partners. While I know I always used condoms properly with Tom, I do believe that Tom could have been fully capable of sabotaging the condoms. Comments. Comment. NTA. Your husband is, though. Your body has already been through a lot. A tubal ligation is a serious surgery, and you are right about being out of commission for a while when recovering. If he is more concerned with an imaginary future wife than he is for you, I don't think there is much hope for this marriage. We have 4 close friends who all got vasectomies. None of them bitched about it like your wimp of a husband. We actually had fun vasectomy-themed parties for them. On the off chance he do end up getting a vasectomy, make sure to do the follow-up appointments. One of the vasectomy Fab 4 did not follow through and ended up with a post-vasectomy baby. Oop. OP. Thank you. I feel like this is a lot of what has been so upsetting, has been that he's thinking about some imaginary future wife when I'm right here, his actual wife, the mother of his children. It's like he's already imagining a future without me. Update 1. May 3rd, 2024. I didn't expect so many comments and literally couldn't go through them all. It seemed like the majority of people said I was NTA, but I did get a lot of UDAs telling me I was trying to force him to get a medical procedure and telling me to get one instead. Besides already addressing my reasonings why I made my request in the original post, which I want you to read with real, per my last email energy. I in no way am forcing him to have a medical procedure. But I am saying that I do not want to be with a partner who is not willing to be snipped. This is an issue of compatibility. The number of children you want, the methods of birth control you're willing to use, those are issues of compatibility and a reason relationships end all the time. If he doesn't want to be sterilized, that's fine, but then that means that we're not compatible anymore, since it means he wants more children and I don't. Beyond that, there were some UDA comments and some DMs that were just nasty, calling me a murderer and saying, my body is a cemetery. Sadly enough, I expected those types of comments because I know there are a lot of Toms out in the world. First, I wanted to address a couple things that kept coming up because the last post turned into thousands of comments that all said about 5 different things. So, to avoid my inbox becoming another echo chamber, you're 100% going to have a C-section anyway, so just get a tubal while giving birth. No, I'm not 100% going to have a C-section anyway. Twins are not an automatic C-section. With my birth history, there is no reason to presume that a C-section is in my future. My OB agrees and has discussed the possibility, as doctors have to do, but also said that based on my past 2 birth experiences, I'm a perfect candidate for vaginal delivery. I also am not going to mince words. Tubal ligations are less effective than vasectomies, with a much higher likelihood of an ectopic pregnancy. Ectopic pregnancy can kill me. In fact, I got a PM from a woman who is a fellow fertile myrtle who had an ectopic after a tubal. I am rejecting birth control options that, if they fail, would lead to my likely death. I don't want to be pregnant again, but I also don't want to die and leave my children motherless. And in no way should anyone assume that traveling to another state to obtain an emergency abortion will continue to be an option in the future. We live in scary times, and Gilead is a real possibility. The comments seem to have the vibe that people think that ligations are magically more effective than vasectomies, and vasectomies are more of a whisper of sterility than an actual sterilization method. So, for those in the back, vasectomies are more effective than tubal ligations. Full stop. So I really need y'all to shut up about it. Go to another state and obtain an abortion anyway. I appreciate the personal offers to help I received in DMs deeply, but no. I'm in my 2nd trimester, which I know is still legal in some places. However, I am at a point in my pregnancy where I personally, as an individual, do not feel comfortable obtaining an abortion, considering I would be even farther along by the time I could travel, which is not only finances but logistics as well. I am 16 weeks pregnant now. These babies aren't just clusters of cells to me anymore, and I'm not going to expand on that since it's not up for debate. Why not adoption? With love and respect to everyone who has gone through adoption in all its aspects, adoption is absolutely not for me. This is a thought process I already went through 8 years ago, and now that I'm a mother and not a scared teenager, I know it's even less for me. I personally could not go through with it and come out the other side intact. Going through a full pregnancy, having my babies, and then being separated from them would break me. Leave him and give him full custody of the twins. No, because going through a full pregnancy, having my babies, and then being separated from them would break me. Jesus. Some of y'all just have a sexless marriage. No, I love banging my husband, obviously, LOL. I don't want to be in a sexless marriage, and anyone who has been to an abstinence-only high school knows that abstinence is not the way, LOL. There were a lot of comments assuming I would be perfectly fine with withholding sex for my husband and having a not-dead bedroom. And I wouldn't. I have a sex drive. I'm going to want to bang my husband. Wanting to have sex with your spouse is normal. What you would do about birth control if you divorced and dated in the future? I'm not thinking of dating anyone else right now because I'm thinking more about saving my actual marriage instead of an imaginary relationship. And if, theoretically, I did, I would probably seek out a partner who was snipped or was ready to be honest. Or a woman. I'm bisexual, so there's a very good chance that my future partner wouldn't have the right parts to knock me up anyway, LOL. Jack is sabotaging your birth control. I clarified my methods in the original post, as per my last email, but I did want to address this because it came up a lot. I don't have reason to believe that Jack sabotaged my birth control. A number of other fertile myrtles showed up and brought up they or their family members' repeated pregnancies in the face of birth control, including tubals. Accusing my husband of reproductive coercion for no reason other than I keep getting pregnant is a big leap and a weighty accusation. I am not the only fertile myrtle out there. There's a reason there's a whole term for it. Your husband is a narcissist, abuser, psychopath, and he does no child care. My husband and I historically have a really healthy and loving relationship outside of this fight. In fact, this fight is the first time we've really had a fight. We've only ever had little arguments that we've been able to talk through. He's an active father. The reason that I do the majority of childcare is due to circumstance between maternity leaves, our job schedules, and the fact that I breastfed my babies. Someone also presumed I'm the breadwinner, which isn't quite true. Jack makes more than me, but we do not have deeply significant differences in our incomes. When he is home, he does his fair share of cleaning and cooking, arguably more than me at times, and parenting. That being said, the things he said in the heat of the moment were deeply concerning, and we are addressing that together. So, to get down to the nitty-gritty of the real update. Since the last time I posted, Jack and I have sat down together and had a real come-to-Jesus talk. I'm not going to go through the whole breakdown, but it basically boiled down to this. It's the vasectomy, but it's more than the vasectomy. It was wrong of me to compare him to Tom, but it was wronger of him to weaponize my trauma against me in a very malicious way. The way he intentionally used the same language my abuser used in an effort to hurt me was not acceptable and damaged the trust between us. He agreed it was not acceptable and said that in the aftermath, he was horrified and ashamed. His own words, and that he, as an explanation and not an excuse, kind of snapped under the stress. Oh, and what he said about his next wife was not an indication of him not being committed to me, but was because he felt hurt and wanted to hurt me back. He has apologized numerous times and seems to feel genuinely bad about it. As for the separation, I am still going forward with it. I need space and time, and I need to take that before the babies come. I am still staying with my parents, who, for the record, are not sick of me or the kids. We're a tight-knit family. I only moved out when I moved in with Jack, and my sister moved out about a year ago, so they have been empty nesting, and my mom doesn't like that we live too far, an hour away. What I have realized with space and time is how deeply triggering it was in a way that I cannot explain to those without PTSD from DV. Those who know will know. It's deeply unsettled me, and I'm having a hard time getting over it, so to speak. There is now a lot of fear of my husband that was never there before, and it's going to take a lot to repair the trust and sense of safety. I cannot make a decision while I'm in this space, and I am addressing this with my personal therapist. Overall, I told him that if he wanted to stay married to me, I needed two things from him: marriage counseling and a vasectomy. And even then, I still cannot guarantee him anything. He understands, but I do not know what will happen with the vasectomy right now. We focused more on talking about the fight, but he is very aware that it's now a deal breaker, and we have a marriage counseling appointment set up for next week. I'm hoping that counseling will bring some clarity to the situation, and in the meantime, for the next couple months, I'm focusing on giving my kids lots of cuddles and preparing myself for 2 new babies to come into my world, with or without Jack. Additional information from OP on her relationships. OP. I've been through a trial to convict my ex-boyfriend of trying to kill me because of an abortion in a deep red, deeply religious area. I've definitely heard worse things, and I typically have pretty thick skin. That being said, I am pregnant and pretty emotional, so it's not the best experience. That being said, I do appreciate the level-headed comments when I see them through the sea of comments kind of saying the same stuff over and over. I'm not reading a lot of them if what I can see in the comment notification starts off, "Now YTA." So a lot of it is just inbox white noise. My favorites are the ones that start off with, "I'm not going to read that, but," and I just think LOL same. Like, you don't want to read my post but expect me to read your comment that was made without even reading the situation, LOL. Nope. And there are a lot of people conflating providing someone with a hard choice with forcing someone into a medical procedure, and it just makes wading through for the actually helpful comments more tiring. Thank you, though. I very much appreciate the kindness. Sorry I've gotten so much of the same nonsense. I guess I needed a little vent. L. Update 2, August 9th, 2024. I kind of haven't wanted to update because I know a lot of people felt a lot of different ways about the original posts. I have still been consistently receiving comments since I posted last, so I figured it was worth updating because a lot has happened since the last time I posted. We went through with a separation and kept 50-50 custody, though we did only share this with those closest to us. We also started going to couples counseling weekly. In TLDR, we both had a lot of stuff to work through, and we both put in a lot of work. I'm not going to share what his reasoning for his aversion to the vasectomy was, but he did share it with me, and he did have some beliefs about masculinity that he had to deconstruct. We did a lot of work at the heart of the issue, which was his weaponization of my trauma in a fight. That was always the biggest issue, far more than the vasectomy. We did a lot of work around that since it did open up the doors to a lot of deeper stuff with us both. We stuck to the agreed-upon separation time since we both wanted to resolve this one way or another before the twins are born. While we did the work with our therapist, we did not talk about the vasectomy during this time outside of structured discussions in therapy, and our therapist believed with our situation it was best that Jack's choice to snip or not be a non-discussion so we could focus on the real, deeper issues at hand. It did help focus discussions to be more productive, but it did mean I've been in the dark about it. There's been a lot of soul-searching, a lot of come-to-Jesus discussions between Jack and me. There were things he said in therapy and in conversation that lead me to believe he is deeply regretful of his words, understands the gravity of them, and is doing the work to never do it again. He hasn't once said anything that reinforced those ideas or implied he truly believed what he said. I've been open to and listening to his words while also being aware it could be lip service. The agreed-upon separation is at an end. We had our final therapy appointment within the separation period recently, and some things have happened during this time with our families that have provided a lot of complications and some clarity. Jack went through with the vasectomy. He iced his balls for a day and was fine. No, I did not force him. It was his own decision, and no, I did not end the separation immediately after he did. And yes, he knew that was the case, that when he did, we still did the work. He is not castrated. He is not emasculated. He is the same man he was before, just shooting blanks, and he did not develop some rare disorder from it. He actually got snipped shortly after we started therapy and couldn't tell me because of the vasectomy talk moratorium. He did not get snipped to have sexual access to me. He didn't, and I'm still freaking pregnant anyway. He did not do it to save the marriage, and we still did the work and are doing the work. We are going to continue therapy together and are in the process of reunifying. So we are still together. My husband is snipped. But now we have some really difficult decisions to make about the viability of living in this state and raising our children here following reunification. Our next big hurdle to jump is what to do about living here. This is something Jack and I have been talking about in passing for a couple years and again recently. This is not something I've blindsided him with. This is not brand new information. This is actually a conversation that's been going on for years between us and just happens to be coming to a head around now. Since most of the reason we've stayed has been to stay close to my family. His family is more spread out and less close. Both my sister and my brother, plus his wife, have recently experienced things that lead them to no longer feel safe here, and my sister at least has already decided to move after what's happened to her and how the laws here made it so much more traumatizing for her. We have one daughter, and in the next few months we may have up to 3 daughters. How can we justify raising them here, knowing how the state would treat them? So that's where we are. We are still together. We are still actively working on our relationship and going to therapy, couples and individual for both. He got the vasectomy and is doing great. Our next hurdle is figuring out if we want to continue living in the state that has proven to be dangerously hostile. Don't know what else to say. That's pretty much it right now. I know that the initial issue has overall been resolved, but now somehow there's still a lot of uncertainty about the future. But I guess that's life. Anyway, that's all, y'all. Now for some comments. Comment 1. It's really heartening to see that in the middle of a challenging situation, you and your husband have found a way to address your issues collaboratively. It's crucial to remember that healing is a process, and it's never linear. Your determination to prioritize the safety and well-being of your family offers a lot of hope. Many people can find themselves stuck in a cycle of blame and frustration, but you've both chosen to step towards resolution instead. I wish you all the best in finding a new home where your family will thrive and continue this positive trajectory. Keep focusing on open communication and mutual support. These are key ingredients for a strong and resilient partnership. Comment 2. Congratulations to you both for doing the hard work. Even if you guys don't make it, you will both know you tried your hardest. Oh, and check out jobs in Minnesota. We have your back. OP, Minnesota is on my sister's short list. If Jack agrees, I would like to follow wherever she goes so we have family nearby, and I hope my brother agrees to do the same. I hope our weak southern bodies would be able to survive the winters. Comment 3, NTA. It's good to hear you both are making progress and working on your relationship, and it's completely valid to consider moving if it's in the best interest of your family. Now on to the next story. Story 5. This is a heartbreaking story. Here is the formatted text as you requested, without changing or omitting any words or phrases. After 10 years together, I caught my wife cheating while I was recovering from cancer surgery, but she won't admit anything or talk about it. I guess it's my turn to share a heartbreaking story that happened to me recently. Please apologize me for grammar. I am not a native speaker by any means, however. I'll try my best. The marriage. We were a great family with 2 lovely kids for 10 wonderful years. As any marriage on the planet, we had our ups and downs. We went through thick and thin, like lack of money, no vacations for a long time. We worked a lot, but still, we loved and valued each other and were good friends to each other. We had plans. We had dreams. We wanted to get old together. We now have great, well-paid jobs. We can have everything we want. We can go everywhere we want. All those bad times and lack of something is far behind. I loved my beautiful wife so much. I appreciated every moment we spent together. Any memory, any kiss, hug, her smile, the way she looked at me. I've been thankful to God for giving me such a great person by my side. I believe she loved me too, until something has broken us. Our kids are the best that ever happened to our family. I love them more than anything. My wife loves them more than anything, and they know it. They feel that they have the best parents in the whole universe. The story. Back in February 2022, the full-scale war started in our country. We were scared. We were stressed. Our city was under constant missile attacks, and we took a quick decision to move into the western part of the country for our safety. A few weeks later, the situation started to escalate, and my wife's good friend, female, told us that there is an apartment waiting for them in Europe, so they can stay there and wait until this is over. We didn't have much time to think under such extreme circumstances, so I bought a ticket for a bus, put my wife, kids, and mother-in-law there, and they fled to Europe. Unfortunately, men in our country are not allowed to cross the borders due to martial law, so I had to stay in the home country. A month later, I returned back to my city where my parents stay. They refused to leave their house and told us to save the kids no matter what. Back in those hot days, I felt tired all the time. I felt dizzy, exhausted. I visited doctors many times, and all they say that this is war. Everybody is tired. Everybody is exhausted. You work so much, your family is far away, so you miss them and feel stressed. Here, take these pills, try to relax and live your life. They were right to some extent until that scary day in August 2022, when I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. It was found by accident during another visit to another doctor. I was devastated. I was depressed. Everything stopped. I've reached the bottom, the darkness, the emptiness. I cried a lot. I cried few times in my life. My wife cried with me. Everybody was shocked and confused. Anyway, thanks to my wife and the support of my family circle, I found some inner strength and started to prepare for surgery. Thyroid cancer, in my particular case, required the removal of all sections of the thyroid gland. The treatment in my case was successful, but I have to change my lifestyle to the core. Less stress, more rest, and healthy stuff. The first few months after the surgery in late August 2022 were pretty tough. First, it was a wound on my neck that hurts as hell, and I barely can eat or swallow. Second, it was my depression that have been waiting for me around the corner. The enormous hormones level and overall loneliness made me feel depressed and vulnerable. I started to lose ground. I've been missing my wife and my kids even more. You may ask, did they have a possibility to visit you? Yes, they did, and my wife came to me in September 2022 for a few weeks to take care of me. Once she left, I felt completely broken. Like, this is my life now. The war, the distance between us, how long I should take those punches? Eventually, I put my crap together and went to therapy. It was tough at the beginning, but now I started to return back to my previous life. Still, there are so many things to work on, but I smile again and even can see my future with my beautiful family. But in December 2022, it all started to fall apart. My family currently lives in some sort of social apartment with other refugees from our country, mostly women and kids. She knows most of them very well because all of them came from her home city and most of them are connected with the same people who invited my wife. So, Fast forward, when the winter came, my wife started to become distant and cold. She became close with most of the young women at that place, and they started to partying here and there, bars, cafes, restaurants. I know that she doesn't get along very well with her mother. They often have fights about every tiny thing. Her mother also didn't like her parties. Sometimes she was very abusive and controlling, saying that she must stay at home with her kids. And even though she was right to some extent, I didn't want to keep my wife inside the cage, and I've always tried to protect her against her mom. She is a very emotional person, and I thought that her mental state is related to the atmosphere in their house, and that's why she needed to hang out sometimes. In the meantime, I had a feeling that my wife stopped to care about me anymore. She asked how I feel less and less. She rarely told me back that she loves me. When I lost my patience, I started to ask pretty direct questions, like, is everything okay between us? Do you still care for me? Do you miss me? The answers were always positive. Of course I miss you. I care for you. Everything is fine. I'm just tired. At the same time, she told me that I became an alarmist, that she's too tired and can't give me and her mother what we want from her. But all I've been asking is her attention, as she had so many excuses why she can't provide it. I was scared. This is not my wife anymore. I felt guilty all the time because I became an alarmist and contributed to the overall pressure that my wife is experiencing. So I stepped down. The affair. A few months later, my oncologist told me that I have a chance to make documents which may allow me to cross the border. This is it. My exact thoughts. I can finally visit my family. I can kiss my wife. I can hug my kids. I can take them to the seacoast. I can everything. The closer to my documents' readiness, the more distant my wife became. No matter what I've asked, it was always fine, and I have nothing to worry about. And finally, in May 2023, I am here. My kids are crying and smiling. They are happy as well as my wife. But something is not there. She didn't even cook any dinner, just a bunch of dirty dishes and a mess around the house. Our first night, and no sex, like what the FK? You didn't see me for almost a year. Those 3 weeks in September 2022 doesn't count, and you don't want any intimacy. I've tried to initiate something, but she felt tired and wanted to sleep. 1 week passed, and we hardly had one time. No kisses, no holding hands, no hugs. I've sat with her and started a conversation if everything is fine between you and me, and you guess what? Everything is fine, honey. I just waited for so long that I am not so sex addicted anymore. But it's not about you, we are good. I'm just tired and I also need some space. My suspicions started to grow exponentially. Yes, we had tough times in our marriage when we were so tired that we had sex a few times in a month, but FFS, a year in space? A few days later, I noticed some stranger's message on her phone, but I didn't saw a context as the screen was locked. She told me then that this is one of her new bosses. I was a bit worried and the next day found that this new boss liked her photos in social media. I immediately started another conversation about her feelings and who is that guy, and she told me that she doesn't know what she feels for me and that guy is just a friend. I was ruined but tried to stay calm. I understand we've been separated by distance for some time. I agree that it was hard for both of us, so I decided to give her some time and space, even though I wasn't a fan of that decision. So I've been nervous all the time, but as I mentioned, I decided to take my family to the seacoast and try to relax. We spent a great week together. We talked so much, we drank so much, we had sex, we kissed. Everything was fine, and finally, the regular night with the girls. I wanted to sleep, but I can't. I opened that pause page, and here we are. He has checked in at the same place where my wife and other girls was partying. I approached her laptop. We don't have a secrets, so I had Touch ID in there. Opened a few messengers and found blatant digital flirting. Texting, I love you, I miss us with another guy from that so-called boss company. I felt down. My heart was broken. I ran away from that home and met her in the night. She saw my eyes. She understand that I know. It was hard. I was hurt. Yes, she confessed, but only after I caught her. She thought she deleted everything. I spent a few more weeks with my kids and her. I was so shocked that I tried to put all the blame on me. I was looking for some reasonable explanations. We slept in one bed, we had sex all that time, and I tried to get her back, but she was stone cold. Their affair was a few months long. So while I was getting all documents, she started a new life behind my back. After I came back to my home country, I've started to analyze the situation. I tried to have a conversation with her, but she just asked for more time to figure it out. I suggested to go to marriage counseling twice, but she just ignored that like I never said it. It was her choice. It was her decision to ruin everything. I lost her forever. I lost myself. She betrayed me while I was battling cancer and needed her the most. I am devastated. I am ruined. I feel unworthy, a miserable human being. She tried to put the blame on me for her adultery, but instead I confronted her and told her to shut up. Why on earth you never talk to me about your feelings? I never saw that coming. I've been thinking that we are finally happy and can relax after chasing our dreams for so many years. If she ever told me that she is unhappy, I would have fixed everything or at least try to fix it, and she was dead silent. I believe things like this never happens within one day. I just don't get why she never openly communicated her feelings and needs to me. Last summer, I've got a paper letter from her where she expressed how she loves me and miss me, and that she counts the days when we can be together. I am going through our text messages every night, and I swear I can't believe it was all her lies. I am trying hard to start a healing process now, but seeing her every time, I see these disgusting texts between her and him, these photos she never sent me, these love words she told him and not me every single day of her affair. I can't believe how someone who promised me to go through all this nightmare together 6 months ago can betray you so hard. She won't even try to talk about reasons of why and how it happened. She is not remorseful. I only talk to my brilliant kids and thinking about filing a divorce soon. I'm just so afraid that they may think that Daddy betrayed them and ruined our family. I am not looking for any advices. I don't know why I am here. I am completely lost and just cried my eyes out. Her betrayal hurts as hell, as well as thoughts about my cancer which may return if I'll surrender. Thanks for reading till the very end. I am trying to stay strong for myself and my kids and not let the cancer beat me again. Edit. Get evidence and tell a kid-friendly version of why you are divorcing. You got a second chance at life. Don't waste it by not living your life to the fullest. Be there for your kids and start the healing process. Thanks. Unfortunately, my lawyer told me that even though I could have collected evidences like screenshots of their texts, the courts in our country never ever consider them when taking a decision, and that night I was literally paralyzed, so I just put the laptop aside and ran away with the pictures tattooed in my mind. I understand that I'm losing so much more than my wife, but I just can't realize how I can continue to live together after such a betrayal. File for the divorce, but where will you live? Where will the kids live? What if she alienated the kids from you in the process? I am not sure whether she has any plans to return. Most probably they'll stay in Europe for a few more years. All I know for sure is that wherever they live, I am ready to visit my kids and even take them home for summer holidays. That is the best I can do, and this also breaks my heart each second I think about it. Why don't you move to Europe so you have access to your kids all the time? Let divorce happen, but move there. I worry with the distance she will also try to replace you as their father as well, so move there. That way custody will be 50-50. Don't give up your children. Time will tell. If they stay, I'll consider a relocation for sure. As for replacement, this is just a matter of time and there is nothing I can do here. Unfortunately, I mentioned in my story that she so easily found some random pause, so sooner or later she will introduce a new daddy, and these thoughts are so traumatic for me, but I should focus on healing myself and on staying in contact with my kids. Can the children stay in contact with you without her interference? Are they old enough to own phones? I really hope things work in your favor and that you don't lose your children too. Definitely worried for you. Yeah, my 7-year-old son calls me every day via FaceTime before he wakes up to school and gets sleep. The way he tells me how he loves me and miss me tear my heart apart for tiny pieces every single time. Whatever the outcome, he is a smart kid and I believe that someday he will understand me and forgive. And so is his little sister, my tiny precious, which I love with all my heart. Anyway, I'll be the best dad till my last breath. Thank you for your kind words. I guess I need all the support in the world now. Update 1. Let me be clear about myself. I am not a perfect husband and partner by any means. Like no one. I am not a saint either, we all are sinners to some extent, but I truly loved my wife. I choose her over a dozen of women every single day. I only dreamt about getting old with her by my side. I cherished every single moment staying with her. I told her about my love every single day, and these words were my sincere feelings. I never doubt about. I wasn't abusive, I wasn't controlling. Sometimes I was rude, but I have feelings in bad days too. I always apologized first. I always tried to protect her. I just wanted to make this woman the happiest person in the world. I love my kids. I wanted these kids. This was my perfect family, my safe place, my own universe. No one is perfect, as so is my wife, but I fully trusted her and never saw any red flags which may signal about cheating from her side. She is not good at communicating about her feelings, and I guess this is where it came from. Did I miss something by myself? Probably yes. I was so depressed because of my diagnosis that she may feel neglected even though I tried to communicate the best I can. This is how I reacted, this is how I maintained the disease. Still, I believe if you love your spouse, you'll never leave him or her in the darkest hour, no matter what you're going through right now. This is our crap, and we made vows to each other that we will support each other till death tear us apart. Was I tempted to fall in love with other women within these 10 years? Never. She is my sun and my sky. There were a few women who tried to seduce me, who tried to step closer, but I have my own moral compass, my principles, my walls around my safe place. My dad cheated on my mom many years to come, and they divorced when I was a small kid. Once I grew up, I found how hard it was for my mother to move on after the betrayal. I promised myself that I will never ever cheat on or hurt the person I love. Update 2. We are living in different countries now due to the war, and I have calls with my beautiful kids daily. What is bothering the most is that how my wife acts like nothing has happened. It is 3 months past since I discovered her affair with some random guy, and we still didn't have any conversation on what the hell is going on. She talks to me like we are good friends. She complains about some random stuff I don't really care. She shares photos of our kids to both grandmas. They still don't know. She talks about her upcoming vacation with kids. I shared my plans to be at my son's birthday, and she asked me if I'm going to celebrate a new year with them because she was thinking that I will. I feel so awkward and disrespected. It's like her affair means nothing for her, and my feelings means nothing. I've been sleeping for a few hours every night since the D-Day, and she asked me why I feel so tired. She is like an alien, like some other person I don't know, and it hurts like hell. She looks happy without me, like I was some dead weight. I feel like crap and can't move on no matter what I've tried. Edit. Was her AP staying at the hotel where your wife and her friends were, or was that her boss you were concerned about? Don't know anything about her AP except his social media profile. She refuses to talk about that man and how/where they met. 1 month ago, I found out that she followed back her AP on Instagram and confronted her again, telling that I've made a decision in filing for divorce. She tried to convince me that she's been following him all that time and that social media means nothing. I am not agreeing on this, especially when you follow the guy who effed you for a few months. Anyway, she didn't make any single attempt to talk to me since D-Day. I may not be good at understanding the cheater psychology, but from my point of view, when you hear that your spouse is talking about divorce and you are remorseful, then you should pick up your cowardly crap and try to fix everything at least by start talking. Update 3. I must admit that I was fooled and manipulated, and as some of you commented in my previous post, the affair still goes on. Long story short, my son called me yesterday, and while we've been talking, my 2-year-old daughter came into his room showing that her diaper is full. I asked my son to call mom to change the diaper, and he told me that she's out and will be at home in 2 hours. My first thought was that she just went to her AP, and I've sent her a message that her little sweetheart might be crap in her pants. She read my message but didn't rep. But once she came home, I called her and confronted about the situation. She lied to me that the affair is over all the time. She didn't say a word while I was talking to her. She just told me that she doesn't want to have this conversation now, and that she is not obligated to explain the situation to me. My God. She left 2 small kids at home to whore around with that guy. How could this be the woman I married 10 years ago? So my initial plan has changed, and I am going full and see except my kids. I don't need that closure conversation anymore. I am finally going to tell about her affair to our families and friends. I don't want to play those mind-effing games and being manipulated. If she doesn't respect me and my feelings, then I shouldn't respect and protect her. I am here in Europe again, drove 2,500 kilometers to spend Christmas with my kids, celebrate my son's birthday and discuss our inevitable divorce. I've been thinking about the final conversation for a long time since there is not any signs of her being prepared to file for divorce. I must admit it was much harder than I expected. We both cried a lot. She is still with the AP. It's been nearly 9 months since they started to see each other. She can't and won't explain anything. I've been simply erased from her life and replaced with another man. I am so disappointed that she can't admit it was a betrayal and still trying to manipulate my feelings, saying that I understand the situation in a wrong way. My wife blames me that I've become unavailable after my diagnosis, and since I've experienced a deep depression and needed support, and she felt unwanted and unneeded for too long. On the other hand, she told me that I am the best person she ever had in my life. Some time ago she even admitted that AP can't match me in every single role. Unfortunately, the saddest outcome of her affair is that I don't trust her anymore and don't believe all those tears and lies. So I finally made the hardest step in my life and tell her that it's officially over. It hurts. It sucks. But this chapter of my life must be closed. My feelings to her are slowly fading day by day. My priorities for now are self-love, my health and my kids, who I'll be missing every single day while long distance tear us apart. I can't hate her or wish her to be miserable for the rest of her life. Instead, I would like to reach indifference and simply don't care about her anymore. She's just a stranger for me now, and I am letting her go. Thanks everyone for reading this and my previous posts. Thank you for all of your advices and support. One more soul is ready to start healing. No one knows what the future holds, but I am sure it is much brighter without a liar by my side. Edit. I postponed all talks with grandparents till today to have at least a tiny chance for some closure. Now I feel free to some extent, and once I come back home, I'm gonna have a serious conversation with everyone. Me and my soon-to-be ex-wife had a conversation about me visiting kids, and she promised me I can take them for summer, which is a great opportunity for me and my parents to see kids. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Wife sold my family's wedding ring heirloom to buy luxury bags, then had to buy it back from the jeweler myself while she pretended to feel bad until she realized what I did. My soon-to-be ex-wife, Leah, 26F, and I, 28M, have been married for 6 months after being together for 2 years. A few days ago, I spoke to a lawyer and filed for divorce because she sold the wedding ring that I had proposed to her with. It was a pretty expensive ring. It had a platinum band and was studded with diamonds. And it has been in my family for 3 generations, so it was a pretty big deal for me, and she knew for a fact that I wanted to keep it in the family since it's been an heirloom. Last week, when I noticed that her ring was missing, I asked her about it, and she told me very casually that she had sold it so she could make a few luxury purchases since the ring was very old-fashioned to look at and wasn't really her style. With that money, she had bought a few handbags from luxury brands and other items of jewelry. She acted like it was no big deal when she was telling me about it, but I obviously started freaking out at her because my mom and my grandma are still around, and if they found out, they would be very upset. So I started telling her that she needed to return all that stuff and buy that ring back because it was meant to be a family heirloom. She knew that, and I couldn't understand how she had made a huge mistake like this. But she clarified that it was not a mistake. She had done this on purpose, and she knew that I was going to start losing my mind, so she had her defense ready as well. Apparently, right from the day I had proposed, she hadn't really liked the ring but hadn't said anything about it because it belonged to my family. However, now that we are married, it technically belongs to her, and she could do whatever she wanted with it, which is why she sold it, and I couldn't complain about it either. That was her defense, and she actually thought that it was airtight logic, but I didn't care. We got into a massive fight. We ended up screaming at each other like never before, and I told her that I wanted that ring back at any cost. I didn't care what she had to do, and she told me that she was not returning anything, and if I wanted that ring back, I would have to buy it back from the buyer myself. I was so upset that I ended up packing a small bag and driving to a hotel in the suburbs, where I currently am. She did not try to stop me. She didn't even look up as I was leaving, and after that, she hasn't tried to contact me either. I waited for 2 days for her to reach out to me, and when she didn't, I spoke to my friends and they put me in touch with a good divorce attorney. On the third day, after speaking with the lawyer, I blocked her everywhere. Yesterday, after I received the divorce papers from the lawyer, I signed them and then I went back home during the day. I skipped work so I could go home when she wouldn't be around. I went inside the house and left the divorce papers on the coffee table, and then I started clearing out my stuff. Thankfully, I had a few friends who were willing to help me out. They helped me carry the heavier and bigger stuff and are storing it at their places right now until I find another place for myself. By the time I was done, everything that belonged to me was gone, and there was literally no trace of me anymore. Then I came back to the hotel, and in the evening, after 6 o'clock, when Leah came back home from work, I started receiving phone calls from her parents and texts, saying that I couldn't do this, that I should just talk to her once, and I need to unblock her because this is something very petty, and I can't just end our marriage over something like this. But I didn't care. I blocked them as well. So she sent her friends after me. They started telling me that whatever I was doing was unreasonable. I was being petty and egoistic. And they also told me that apparently, right after I had left, Leah had already reached out to the jeweler that she had sold the ring to and was in the process of buying it back because she felt bad for it, but I couldn't even give her that much time. So they started making me out to be the bad guy here, and now I feel like I might have overreacted, and I've been feeling weird since last evening. Now, AITA for filing for divorce because my wife sold the wedding ring that had been in my family for generations? Edit. Nobody in my family has any idea about what is happening right now. I don't want them to worry, which is why I didn't tell them anything. My maternal grandmother is pretty old. That's who the ring originally belonged to since my grandfather proposed to her with it, and I don't want her to have a heart attack, which she will definitely have if I tell her that Leah sold the ring. It's very important to my family, and I myself have been speaking to the jeweler that Leah sold the ring to for the past couple of days. She had provided me with the contact info while we were fighting when she had told me that if I wanted the ring back so bad, then I should just go buy it back myself. But I haven't been able to buy it back yet since the jeweler is quoting a much higher price than he purchased it from Leah for, and I'm trying to negotiate with him right now. However, I did ask him if Leah was also trying to buy the ring back, and he confirmed that she was also in the process of buying it back, and he had decided that he was going to return it to whoever came up with the money first. And in the meantime, if any other client was willing to pay a higher price than what he was quoting to us, then he would sell it to them instead. So I had to act fast because the ring was on display at his store, and he doesn't have any reservation policy as such. So he's not going to hold on to it if somebody offers more money. It's been very annoying to deal with him, but at the end of the day, he's a businessman, and I can't hold this against him because after all, it was Leah who sold him the ring, and he paid good money for it, so it's all fair game for him. But I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that I'm able to put together the money as soon as I can, or maybe he might lower the price that he's quoting, and I'll be able to buy it back. Only after that will I be able to tell my family what is going on right now, because otherwise things will just get very messy, and I don't want them to panic. Update 1. So it's been 4 days since I first posted here. Thank you so much to everybody who commented on my post. It was all extremely helpful to know that I was doing the right thing, because I had seriously started to doubt myself. Her friends had really gotten into my head. They had been very bent about villainizing me here, but thankfully I didn't take it to heart. I blocked all her friends and all her family members. I don't want anything to do with any of them right now. Because of everything that has happened in the past few days, it's really been screwing with my head. Leah and I have been together for a few years, and I never imagined something like this ever happening. She's always been a bit materialistic, that's something I'll have to accept, but I never thought that she would go to this extent. And then for her to pretend like she hadn't even done anything wrong, that's what really caught me off guard. Because it's not like we haven't had fights before. Of course we had, like any other couple, but this one was different. I saw a different side of her, and that's why I decided to get a divorce. Because just 6 months into our marriage, she thought that she could treat me like this. Then she's wrong. She cannot walk all over me and expect me to stay. And the thing about the ring, it might seem like a small thing to everyone else, but for me and my family, it's a huge deal. It's not like she didn't know that. I had mentioned in my original post as well that she knew very well that I intended for the ring to be a family heirloom. You don't just sell a family heirloom and then pretend like it's completely fine because, technically it belongs to you now. And I wish I could say all this to her family and her friends, who were so bent on making me out to be the bad guy, but I don't think it's worth the trouble. She herself hasn't made any attempt to contact me, which is weird, given how desperate she seems. I know for a fact that she has a burner account on social media, and I haven't blocked that one, but she hasn't sent me any texts from there. So I guess it's not really her trying to get back with me. It's just her trying to make me feel like I'm the bad guy here because I filed for divorce. At least that's how the situation looks right now. I'm really not sure of anything at the moment. Anyway, coming to the ring and the jeweler guy, I've been in touch with him, and he has told me that Leah hasn't been responding to his messages for the past 2 days. So maybe she's backed off. I don't know what's going on with her, but I told him that I was willing to buy the ring back at the price that he was quoting, because at this point I was just desperate to get it back by hook or by crook. So he agreed, and tomorrow I'm going to go to his store, write him a check, and get my ring back. And then I'm finally going to tell my family about what's been going on with me and Leah, because I think it's time that they find out. They still have no idea, and my mom has been asking me why neither of us is at home and why Leah is not answering her phone calls. I didn't know that Leah had moved out as well. I'm assuming that she's left to stay with her parents or maybe her friends. It doesn't matter. But I guess it's finally over because moving out of the house, it seems pretty final. So I think I can expect to hear back from her lawyer in a couple of days, and then we can go ahead with a divorce. I just have a gut feeling that she is not going to contest it, and I really hope that she doesn't because I feel like I've been fair enough in my terms of the divorce, and she shouldn't feel the need to ask for anything else. Anyway, I'm going to find out soon, and I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that now things work out well for me, because I'm already losing out a lot of money on buying back the ring. I don't want to spend a fortune on a lawyer fighting a long-drawn divorce as well. I just hope that things go well beyond this point. I don't know what else to say anymore. Update 2. Okay, so today I finally went to the jeweler's store, wrote him a check, and bought back the ring. The guy seems to be pretty interested in the situation that I'm in. He was very talkative and seemed to be a bit of a gossip, so he told me that he had never been in a situation like this before and found it very interesting. He also told me that Leah had blocked him all of a sudden, and I think that's very interesting, given how her friends were trying to make it seem like she was feeling so bad about the fight that she was genuinely trying to buy the ring back. But I guess as soon as she realized that I was not going to be coming back, she stopped trying. So it was just for show after all. She doesn't really care about any of this and only cares about coming off looking better in this situation. That just confirms whatever I already believed, so I'm not surprised. After visiting the jeweler, I decided to speak to my family and finally rip the band-aid off because I was sick of hiding things from them. And now that I had the ring, they wouldn't have to worry about that either. So I drove to my mom's house and sat my parents out, put my grandma on FaceTime, and explained the entire situation to them. Everyone was shocked that Leah had done something like this because she comes off as a very sweet person, and nobody had expected her to pull off something like this. My grandma was glad that I had managed to get the ring back, but she told me that after everything that had happened, it didn't seem fair that I had to buy my own ring back, and she told me that during the divorce I should make Leah pay for it. I told her that I would think about it, but honestly, I know that that's not going to work. It would only lead to a long-drawn battle and negotiation after negotiation, which is really the last thing that I wanted. These things can get drawn out, and I really don't have the kind of energy or money to keep spending on lawyers. I didn't say it to her, but in a situation like this, there is not much that I could do except just admit defeat. It sounds bad, but really, it's the more practical thing to do because it's not like we had a written agreement or anything. It would be hard to prove anything. These are just social conventions and not hard and fast laws or rules, so going after this legally would be pretty much pointless, unless I can afford the best lawyers in town. And my parents understood that, so they didn't press it further afterward. But after we disconnected the FaceTime call with my grandma, they told me that they were really disappointed in how the situation with Leah had turned out to be because they had really liked her all along. They had never had any issues with her. She had always been such a great daughter-in-law, and when we got married, my parents were the happiest they could have been because Leah fit in with our family so perfectly. She was like the missing piece in a jigsaw puzzle, and now, not even a year into our marriage, we were already getting divorced. I ended up crying while they were talking to me, and they had to comfort me because so far, I haven't allowed myself to break down or to process any of the emotions that I've been feeling. But today, I just couldn't hold back. Hearing my parents talk about Leah and how upset they were about this situation, it just made me feel so bad about what I was going through. And they were right. Not even a year into our marriage, we were already getting divorced. I wouldn't have ever been able to imagine anything of the sort happening a few months back or even a few weeks back. But now this is happening, and there's not much that I can do about it. The worst part is that I know for a fact that she doesn't even think that she's done anything worth getting divorced over. That's why she sent her family and friends after me to try and make me feel bad and guilt-trip me into coming back. The whole talking to the jeweler thing was all just for show. She just wanted to make it seem like she felt bad. But she probably didn't. She doesn't even realize how big of a deal this was for me. And she really thinks that I'm overreacting, and that's what sucks the most. But I did feel lighter after talking to my parents today. I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off of my chest. They told me that they were proud of me for standing up for myself and for my family and not allowing anybody to walk all over me, even if I did love that person. And that's all the reassurance that I need, that at least my parents think that I'm doing the right thing and that I'm not overreacting at all. If something hurts me, it hurts me. I can't help it. And if she doesn't care that she hurts me, then maybe it's good for us to get out of this marriage while we are ahead of ourselves. So now I'm just waiting for her to respond to my divorce petition, and I just hope that she doesn't contest anything, since that's really the last thing that I need to go wrong right now. She has given me enough trouble. I don't want any more. Update 3. So it's been a couple of days since my last update, and I've been busy with stuff. I had missed a few days of work, so I had to make up for lost time, and I had to work overtime because given my current situation, I couldn't afford to annoy my employers. And in my free time, instead of relaxing, I was looking for an apartment near my workplace, because I don't think it's feasible for me to be staying at this hotel any longer. Thankfully, I've been able to finalize a place with a reasonable rent agreement, and I'm moving into my new apartment next week. Naturally, the more practical aspects of my life had been keeping me very busy, so I didn't have time to keep thinking about Leah and everything that was going wrong with her. In a way, it was a good thing because it kept me distracted. But then last evening, she called me up. It was from a number I didn't have saved on my phone, so I instinctively picked up, and when I heard her on the other end, I didn't know whether I should stay online or if I should hang up, so I ended up just staying. I didn't say anything. I just stayed silent throughout the entire phone call, and she didn't apologize or anything. She just told me that she really wanted to talk to me one last time, even though she knew that she had no right to ask that of me. But she still wanted me to meet her so she could deliver the signed divorce papers to me in person and just have one last conversation with me so she could clear things out. Even then, when I didn't say anything, she just told me that she would be waiting at home in the afternoon and then hung up. And for the rest of the evening, I was very conflicted about what to do. But this morning I decided that I would finally go over because even if I didn't want to talk to her, I thought that it would be a good idea to at least get the divorce papers in person, and part of me was curious as to what she had to clear out with me. So I went home, and by then the place had pretty much been cleared out. Only the furniture remained, but the house had come pre-furnished, so that's obviously going to stay, and we are going to end the lease agreement by the end of this month anyway. After handing over the papers to me, she also handed over a check. I was very confused, but then I saw the amount and it was a pretty significant sum, and she explained that she had returned all the stuff that she had bought with the money from the sale of the ring, and now since we were no longer going to be together, she thought that it would be better for her to return the money to me. It was a few thousand less than what I had paid to the jeweler to buy my ring back, so I told her about that, and she told me that whatever amount I had to pay, she would cover the rest of me in installments over the next few months, but right now this is all that she can afford to give me. I was fine with that because honestly, at least I got some of it back, whereas I had expected that I would lose out on all the money that I had spent on buying the ring back. It felt a little awkward, but I did thank her, and that's when she finally apologized to me. She had already started tearing up, and she told me that she had never intended for things to go so wrong, but it was clearly too late to fix anything now, so maybe it was better for us to just let each other go. I didn't know what to say back, so I just stood there awkwardly silent while she went on speaking. She told me that she had been feeling awful about everything for the past couple of weeks, ever since I had left home, and even though her family and friends were all on her side, she couldn't bring herself to think that she had done the right thing and that I had overreacted. Somewhere deep down, she knew that I was right and this was a huge mistake that she had made. She told me that at several points she wanted to reach out to me, but I had already blocked her, and she was afraid that if she did reach out to me, then I would maybe reject her and she wouldn't be able to take that. So that's why she just stayed away. And she also said that she knows I deserve better, which is why she thinks it's better for us to get divorced. She was crying, but she still got done with her speech somehow, and then she walked away without waiting for a response from me. I was kind of in shock, so I just stood there in the living room for a couple of minutes after she left, and I sat on the couch and just tried to make sense of everything for about half an hour after I heard her car drive away. I ended up crying as well, and then I finally left and came back to the hotel. I'm going to go to the bank tomorrow to cash in the check. Then I've already spoken to my lawyer about the papers, and since there's nothing else to be discussed, we just have to wait for the waiting period to elapse, and then we'll be officially divorced. I thought that this would feel a lot better than it does right now, but I guess with time I'll move on. For now, though, it's going to hurt, and I'm going to let it hurt because there's really nothing else that I can do about it right now. Update 4. So I cashed the check today at the bank, and it felt very freeing for some reason. Leah and I haven't spoken in the past few days after our last interaction at the house, and I feel like I'm letting things go now because holding on to that anger and that hurt is not going to do me any good, and I just want to forget about that whole episode and move on with my life. I've already moved out of the hotel and into my apartment, and thanks to my friends, I've been able to set everything up pretty quickly. I'm very grateful that I have such supportive friends. They have been checking in on me every few days as frequently as they can, and I'm also very grateful for my parents, who have also been there for me emotionally. I don't think I would have been able to deal with this the way that I am right now had it not been for them. And it's not like I don't miss Leah or that I don't feel bad about anything that has happened. Of course I do, but I can't let that get in the way of my life, because the world is not going to stop for me and wait for me to process my feelings. I'm still going to have to work. I'm still going to have to keep up with the bills and everything. I'm still going to have to do everything that I'm required to do, and for me to be able to keep up, the kind of emotional support that I have received from everyone was very necessary. So I'm really happy that I have such a good support system around me. In a few weeks, my divorce will also be finalized, and after that, I'll be done with all the legal stuff. I'm thinking of going on a holiday or doing something a little adventurous and spontaneous to get my mind off of things because I really think I need a change of pace right now. I've been speaking to a couple of friends, and they seem excited about the idea of traveling together, so maybe I'll take them up on that. By now, pretty much everybody knows that Leah and I are not together anymore, thanks to her social media post. I'm not a big social media guy, so I didn't post anything or make any announcements, but she did put out a statement, and a lot of our common friends did reach out to me. Some of them just wanted to tell me that it gets better, and some of them only wanted to gossip, but at least everybody knows now, so I don't have to explain anything to anyone. So I'm grateful for that, at least. Anyway, that being said, I'm just looking forward to moving on now. Update 5. Hey everyone, so my divorce was finalized earlier this week, and once again, Leah called me from that number that she had used earlier to apologize once again. This time, instead of just staying silent, I told her that I wish things could have worked out between us. But it is what it is, and I wish her nothing but the best for the future. She thanked me, and then she hung up, and that was that. It hurts, but I guess this is as close as we are going to get to getting some sense of closure. Now I'm actively trying to move on with my life, and as I had said in my last update, I'm about to go on a trip with a couple of my friends in a few days, and I'm really excited about that. I've been looking forward to it for weeks, and it's finally happening, and it really feels like I'm starting a new chapter of my life, which is pretty exciting. Of course, I'm still not over the chapter that I've left behind, but I can't go back. The only way to move now is forwards, and I'm hoping that this trip does its job well. That being said, I don't think I'll be posting here anytime soon, so I just want to take out a moment and thank everybody who commented on my posts, supported me, and even reached out to me. It's really nice of you guys, and given the fact that you guys are literally strangers to me, and even then, people cared about my situation, it's really heartwarming. So thank you for all of that. I mean it. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Sister locked my sick son in her cold basement during his cousin's birthday party. Now dad is removing her from his trust fund, and her husband won't let her near their kid. A few days back, my son attended my nephew's birthday party, and that's where everything went wrong. Both of them are 8 years old. They go to the same school, and a bunch of their friends were at this party. Before the party, he had been feeling a little under the weather, so I had asked him several times if he really wanted to go. But he had insisted that he felt fine enough to go. That's why I let him, because he wasn't looking too bad. Just a little tired. I figured that being with his friends would make him feel better, so I dropped him off at my sister's place. Then, I went out to run some errands and catch a movie with my wife. In the meantime, for almost 3 hours, I kept trying to reach my sister to ask if my son was doing all right. I had informed her already that he had not been feeling the best before the party, so I would probably call to check up on him. But every time I called, she would just ignore me, and the phone kept ringing. I even texted my son on the emergency phone that he has, but later on, I found out that it had been confiscated by my sister at the beginning of the party itself because apparently she has the strict no-screen policy in her house. Even when he started feeling very sick and wanted his phone back to call me, she declined. After almost 3 hours, when I was still not able to reach him, my wife and I started feeling a bit iffy about whatever was going on. Since it was getting late, we decided to just drop by and pick him up. When we showed up at the house, people had already started leaving, and when we entered, there were just a few kids left. Surprisingly, our son was not in the living room with the rest of the kids, and when I asked my sister, she started looking very embarrassed all of a sudden. She asked both of us to stay in the living room, and she would go get him. But I realized that there was something very fishy going on because why would my son not be in the living room with the rest of the kids? So I followed her even though she insisted that I should just stay in the living room. I went after her with my wife, and while we were walking, she started explaining that during the party, my son had apparently started feeling very sick and wanted to call me, but she didn't believe him. She thought that he was just putting it on and seeking attention because that's what kids do. So, when he started insisting and nagging her, she got a bit upset with him and put him in timeout in the basement because she thought that he was going to ruin her son's birthday party that she had been planning for weeks. She didn't let him call me, and neither did she pick up my calls herself because she was too busy with the party, and until we showed up, she had totally forgotten about him. So that's why she had been looking so uneasy. Naturally, I lost my calm while she explained everything, and I made her rush to the basement so she could open up and we could check on my son. Thankfully, he's all right now, but when we found him, he was sniffling, constantly shivering, and almost on the verge of unconsciousness, and he had even vomited on the floor of the basement a bunch of times. We wasted no time in rushing him to the nearby hospital ER because even if there was nothing seriously wrong with him, we couldn't take that chance. My sister decided to get into her car and drive behind us, leaving her husband in charge of the other guests. We had left through the kitchen door because I didn't have any time for questions, and even though I had asked my sister not to come to the hospital with us since she was the last person that I wanted to see, she still came along. While we were in the waiting area, she constantly kept apologizing to both of us, but we just ignored her. After a while the doctor was checking up on our son, I realized that my dad had shown up in the ER as well, along with my brother-in-law. The two of them asked us what was going on. Apparently, my sister hadn't even told them what was happening, but had informed her husband that she was in the hospital after all the guests had left. They showed up, and my sister was about to tell them that everything was fine, but I went ahead full steam and told both of them what exactly had happened. I was very angry. I couldn't care less about how she came off in this incident, and naturally, both my father and her husband were horrified. Apparently, she had lied to all the guests, telling them that my son had left through the kitchen exit and I had picked him up because he was feeling slightly under the weather, but it was nothing serious, and nobody had to worry about him. That seemed like a reasonable explanation, so nobody even suspected anything because obviously what she had done was extremely crazy, and it wouldn't have occurred to anyone. After I told them the truth, my brother-in-law started fighting with her and calling her crazy and all that, but my dad just went quiet for a couple of minutes. Then, he just turned to my sister and he told her that he had been considering setting up a trust fund for both of us in our future, but now he would only be leaving everything to me and the grandkids. She wouldn't receive anything, and he would make sure of it. All of us were a bit shocked by this sudden declaration, and within a few seconds, my sister started crying, but nobody sympathized with her. Now, it's been a couple of days and my son is doing much better, but he's still a little traumatized, so we're working on that by spending as much time as we can with him. In the past few days, though, my sister has also been begging me to fix everything and try to talk to our father because she thinks that this is way too harsh of a punishment for what she did. Even her husband is not talking to her right now and is actively keeping their kid away from her. She has apologized at least a gazillion times by now, but I honestly don't care. She already did something horrible, and she can't take it back. But in the back of my mind, I also feel a little weird about the fact that my dad has decided to cut her out of the trust fund, because originally he had only named his 2 grandkids, and both of us were fine with it. But now I'm included in it as well, and I'm the new beneficiary, and I don't know, it just feels weird, and I'm finding it hard to wrap my head around it. So basically, what I want to know is, WTA for letting my dad name me as a trust fund beneficiary along with his grandkids and leave my sister out of this for what she did. Update 1. Hey everyone. First of all, thank you so much for all the comments. My son is doing perfectly fine now, and we are very grateful that so many people seem to care about him. We are also very thankful for all the concern and support that has been shown to us in the comments. It's really sweet of you guys. Anyway, coming to what's been happening recently, I have decided to block my sister. It's been a week since the party now, and I think she should just count herself lucky that we have decided not to pursue any sort of legal action against her or report her for this, because I think we could very well do that. We just don't need the drama right now. It's going to take a lot of time and money to pursue this, and it's just not worth it. We have been throwing around the idea of reporting her to CPS, but that's only been a recent development. The reason I did not mention it in my previous post was because, honestly, we were not even thinking about what to do about her. I was mostly just focused on my son and on the whole trust fund situation. It didn't even occur to me that I might have to report her and stuff, but I think it's a good idea to do that because she has a son herself. She sometimes has other kids over, and I really don't think that it's a good idea for her to have that going on right now. It's clear that there's something wrong with her at the moment. I don't know what it is, but normal people don't behave like this. So, if I do report her to CPS, maybe they will suggest counseling or something, and she will be able to deal with her stuff better in the future. In the long run, it'll be good for her. Also, a couple of people were asking me why I hadn't just blocked her in the beginning itself and why I was letting her text me in the first place. Honestly, it was just a moment of weakness for me. After our mother passed away a few years ago, my dad, my sister, and I had become a very close-knit unit. That's why I trusted her enough to leave my son with her at the birthday party and take off with my wife for the evening. If I hadn't trusted her, I would have spent the entire evening with them because I usually don't let my son spend time at anybody's house for hours without thinking it through. We have been very close for the past few years, so I was finding it a bit difficult to block her, especially when she was going through all this in her personal life as well. I am a father, but I'm also her brother, so I was feeling kind of sad for her while I was also feeling angry about what she had done to my son. So there were just a lot of conflicting feelings, and I felt very lost, so I hadn't blocked her yet. But now I don't think that I need to entertain any of this. I don't even need to feel bad for her. Even if it was an honest mistake, it's just not one that people can afford to make with kids. These things can leave people scarred for life, and if she doesn't have the common sense to understand that, then maybe she shouldn't be having kids over at her house in the first place. Anyway, I'm going to speak to my dad today, and then we might report her to CPS. It won't be easy, but I seriously feel like this has to be done because what she did was really irresponsible and a horrible thing to do to anybody at all, not just a 7-year-old kid, and I can't let this go just because she's my sister. I probably wouldn't even have thought about reporting them twice had it been anybody else in her place, but only for her sake we have been giving her the benefit of the doubt. Unfortunately, I don't think this is a situation where apologies can cut it. Update 2. So, it has been a couple of hours since my last update, and my wife and I just had dinner with my dad. We brought the topic up with him that we had been discussing the idea of reporting my sister to CPS. I didn't know how he would react to that because, at the end of the day, she is still his daughter, and he might be upset with her. But I don't know if he would be okay with something like this because it's really serious. He thought about it for a while. I thought he was going to advise us against this, but in the end, he told us that we should do what we think is right, and if we think that we should report her to CPS, then by all means we should go ahead. He was very frank about the whole situation and told us that even in the past, he had caught my sister being short with her own child many times. Most of the time, she would be very nice and calm, but sometimes she would just lose it over something very small and insignificant when he was over, and then her son would cry and she would try to make it up to him. But it was clear that she had a few issues controlling her temper. With my son, it just got really ugly, and he had advised her several times to get some counseling, go to parenting classes, and just find a help way to deal with her because honestly, kids are going to be kids. Kids are going to screw up all the time, they're going to make a lot of mistakes, and they will not be perfect and easy to deal with, but as parents we can't afford to make them feel bad and scare them all the time. She said she would do something about it, but she never did, and after this incident, my dad decided that it was enough. He told us that he should have brought it up with her in a more serious way, but he never thought that things would come to something like this. I don't even blame him because I don't think anybody could have thought that he would do something like this. We don't even assume that people can be capable of stuff like this until they do something like that. Anyway, the bottom line was that my dad told me to go ahead, and he thought that since it's our child who had to go through something like this, it should be our decision entirely, and it was not even necessary to ask for advice on this. But of course, there is going to be an investigation, and if he is asked anything, he's going to be truthful about everything. So that was a relief, and I really hope that my sister cooperates with CPS because that way she'll be let off easy. And I'd honestly say that that's the goal here. I don't want her to get in trouble. I just want her to be better and learn something from this. I also spoke to my father about the trust fund. I told him that I had been feeling a bit uneasy about it since I knew that originally it was intended just for the grandkids. But he told me that he had been thinking about adding me and my sister as beneficiaries as well for a while now, and he had been planning on surprising us with that information on Christmas. His business has been doing very well, and he ends up saving a lot of money because he has a pretty modest lifestyle and doesn't need much. So he thinks that it's fair enough for me to be added as a beneficiary, and since it's his money, nobody can tell him what to do. Even if my sister does think it's unfair, she's just going to have to deal with it because the fact remains that what she did on the day of the party was simply not acceptable. My father also pointed out the fact that it's not like she's not going to be able to survive on the money that she makes right now. She's a working woman. Even her husband works, and they make a decent amount of money together, so she's going to be just fine. And he's going to be around for quite a while, so it's not like I'm going to be getting the money from the trust fund anytime soon. Since he is in pretty good health, that's going to happen way into the future, and I don't need to worry about it right now. After speaking to him about it, I felt a lot better, and I don't feel that guilty anymore, and I really don't think that I had to feel guilty in the first place. It's not like I was doing anything wrong. I didn't coerce or force my father to do something like that. He did this of his own accord, and I'm not going to worry about this being unfair or whatever anymore. I'm just not going to stress myself about anything that I don't have to anymore, because it's just not worth it. If my sister feels bad about any of this, tough luck. But she really should have thought things through, and that's all I have to say on this anymore. Anyway, I'm glad that I had dinner with my dad and spoke to him about all these things, because speaking to him really gave me a sense of clarity that I needed. Now both my wife and I know what to do, and we are going to go ahead and do it. We just hope that something good comes out of it and the situation doesn't spiral out of control. I really do have my fingers crossed that my sister will acknowledge her mistakes, show remorse, and take steps to rectify everything. Update 3. Hey guys, so after my last update, there were a lot of people who had said that there was no need for me to report my sister to CPS anymore because right now my child was safe and I didn't have to worry about anything. But like I said, this was not about getting my sister in trouble or getting revenge on her. This was just about doing the right thing. I knew that if she was truly and really apologetic about the situation, she would cooperate, and I knew that since my child was currently safe, CPS probably wouldn't take this very far. Since I had discussed it with a friend of mine who works with the organization closely, being a foster care worker, and I had done my own research as well before taking a step like this because I knew that this could go wrong very quickly, but ultimately, this was about doing the right thing since she has a kid of her own and she has kids over sometimes as well. So I went ahead and reported her anyway. And of course, the caseworker who got in touch with us did ask us why there was such a delay, and we had to explain that since it was my sister that we were talking about, I had been confused about whether I should do this or not, but now I was confident about my decision. It's been 2 weeks since then, and the caseworker has gotten in touch with my sister as well. He did speak to both my wife and I. We gave him a thorough account of whatever happened, and then my son was also spoken to separately, and he was a bit nervous about it, but he did share everything that happened. We also showed her the medical records from the ER and the later visit to the doctor and confirmed that it had been an emergency because my son had a severe case of food poisoning. That was not my sister's fault, but even then, she should have taken it seriously. Then, after speaking to us, within 6 days, my sister received a visit, and from what I'm hearing, she was cooperative and extremely apologetic. By the end, she was actually in tears, But she did not make a big deal out of her emotions and stuck to the truth. She showed the caseworker around the house, and since the basement was not exactly a hazardous place, it was just really cold. The caseworker told us that they were going to get in touch with their supervisor and let us know about the decision soon enough. We did try and get her to tell us what was going to happen, but she told us that that decision was not exactly up to her. She could only make recommendations, but she definitely would recommend that since my sister had been very cooperative and apologetic throughout the visit, and from the initial investigation and findings, she could tell that while it was bad, it had probably been a one-time thing. So she would suggest counseling and parenting classes for my sister to her superior as per our request. Even though we don't know the decision yet, I'm hoping that that's what happens and this doesn't go too far. Update 4. It's been a week and a half since my last update, and a couple of days ago, the caseworker reached out to us again and said that a decision had been made, and thankfully, our suggestions were taken into account. My sister had shown that she really wanted to improve, and even her husband and son had said that while she does have issues with her temper sometimes, something like this had only happened once, and they would try their best to make sure that it never happens again. Taking all of that into account, it was decided that she would have to attend counseling sessions and parenting classes, and until the situation was deemed to be better, she was not supposed to have any sort of unsupervised contact with my son. The last bit is already not happening, so we are fine with that, and about that, this has turned out exactly like what we had wanted, so we are thankful for that. The caseworker is going to stay in touch with us and my sister to monitor the family equation closely, but for now, this is it. I haven't spoken to my sister yet, nor has she tried to reach out to me, and it's the same with my brother-in-law as well. I don't even know if they are talking to each other yet because the last that I had heard, he was not speaking to her, and he was trying to keep their son away from her as well. But since he has stood by her during this time, I'm hoping that the situation is better in their home as of now. I have kept my father updated throughout the whole thing, and now that we finally have a decision, we are finally able to breathe again because this had been very stressful for all of us, not just my sister or me. This is probably the first time something like this has ever happened in our family, and of course we are not used to dealing with stuff like this. So until we had a decision, this was the only thing on our minds. But I'm happy that we were able to sort things out without much of a fuss, and mostly, I'm just glad that my sister has decided to seek help and improve herself. As for my son, he's pretty much back to normal. He's playing, laughing, jumping around, and doing everything that kids his age do. At school, he's also hanging out with my nephew regardless of the situation between me and my sister, and that's really the way it ideally should be. Whatever the equation is between us currently, we have not let that affect the kids. I didn't speak about it earlier because there were other important things to mention, but I think it's about time that I speak about this as well because there have been some questions about it. Since my kid and her son go to school together, it's natural that they will interact a lot, and they are quite close, which is why they have continued their relationship uninterrupted. I didn't have a problem with it at all when my son was coming back from school, wanting to go over to my nephew's place to play with him. I was just glad that they were blissfully unaware of everything that was going on with their parents. But of course, I couldn't take him, so I had to disappoint him a bit there because I wasn't sure if my sister would want me there or not. However, apart from that, I was glad to know that they were keeping up their friendship. At first, I was not sure if my sister would appreciate her son hanging out with my son anymore, but even she hasn't had any problems with it. So I think we are at a place where we can let them be, and I think even though they are really little, it's important to respect what they want as well. So when things get a little calmer, I think I'm finally going to go over to her place with my son and let the kids play together because my son has told me a bunch of times that he wants things to go back to how they were before. He wants to go over to his cousin's place and hang out with him, and he's not even scared of his aunt anymore. It's easy for him to forget about it, not so much for us, but for his sake, I will try to talk to my sister and see if she would be open to the idea of them having playdates like they used to before. If not at her place, she can always have her husband drop off my nephew at my place since we sometimes used to do that as well. Anyway, right now I think we should just let things be, but in the future I'm definitely going to try and do something about it because I don't want to disappoint my son, and I definitely don't want him to cut ties with his cousin. They are very close, and I want them to keep this friendship up regardless of the family dynamics and all that. Update 5. Hey, so it's been a couple of months. My sister and I are not exactly back to normal, but I did speak to her about our children, and we have resumed our dates. Of course, she still doesn't have any unsupervised contact with my son, just like the caseworker had suggested, and we are making sure of it. She is also attending counseling sessions and parenting classes and trying to bring her temper under control. She's also told me that she wasn't very happy when she found out that I had reported her to CPS, even though she had apologized to me, but she could understand why I did so. She doesn't think things can go back to normal between us, but she's still going to try for the sake of our kids, and I agree with her. I really don't think that things can go back to how they used to be, but for the sake of our kids, we are definitely going to try. She and her husband are also attending marriage counseling. My brother-in-law and I are on speaking terms again, so he told me about it and said that in the beginning he had been very upset with her. He didn't want to talk to her or even let her around his son, but with time, he realized that this kind of silent treatment behavior is only going to hurt the family, so he decided to deal with it, and since he doesn't want to get a divorce, they have decided to try and work things out. As of now, things are going well for them, and I really do feel happy for them. My father and my sister have still not spoken to each other yet. He refuses to talk to her first, and she refuses to acknowledge his existence. I don't know what's going to happen there, but like I said, I'm not going to worry myself about anything that's not directly my concern. They are both adults, so if they want to work it out, they will do so. For now, I'm just grateful that things in the family are working out. Now on to the next story. Story 8. My brother invited us for dinner, but when my husband and I arrived, he told me to send hubby back home, claiming he doesn't belong in our family because he's just a dirty, illiterate cleaner. So, earlier this week, my husband and I attended Thanksgiving dinner at my brother's place, but unfortunately, things did not exactly pan out as planned. My brother, let's call him Brandon, is 2 years older than me, and growing up, we were very close. In fact, we still got along pretty well until recently, about 4 years ago, when I, 28F, started dating my husband, Nick, 30M. Brandon does not like Nick. He does not approve of our relationship and never has. It's not a question of whether Nick is a good guy or not. He undoubtedly is, and everyone who knows him will agree with that statement. We are good together and we make each other really happy, but none of that matters to Brandon. All he cares about is the fact that Nick doesn't come from the same kind of family that we do. Nick was raised by a single mother after his dad walked out on his mom after she found out that she was pregnant. His mom had pretty much nobody to help her out since her family did not approve of her carrying her pregnancy without a father. In spite of all of that, she was determined to give birth to Nick and give him a good life, and she worked incredibly hard to make sure that she was able to do all of that. So, he's not rich, but honestly, I think that the way he and his mother have led their lives is a lot more admirable than anything my brother and I have ever achieved. My parents are both lawyers, and we have had a relatively cushioned and comfortable life, but Brandon thinks that because of his past and the kind of background that he comes from, Nick is somehow inferior to us. Even though I think that Nick is much superior because in spite of having practically no support apart from his mom, he still managed to make it through college and is now living a pretty good life while also supporting his mom, who is now retired. I don't understand what isn't respectable about any of this, and I've always hated the fact that Brandon has treated Nick so weirdly all the time, pretty much ever since I introduced him to my family. My parents never seemed to have a problem with him, but my brother went out of his way to make him feel small with stray remarks and stuff. I even fought with him on several occasions because of this, and a lot of times, I have even stopped talking to him for weeks. But then he has always apologized and promised that he's not going to repeat this kind of behavior, and I've always forgiven him, but inevitably, it has happened again and again. He was not happy when we got engaged last year, and he was definitely not happy when we got married 6 months ago, but I really thought that he was going to come around eventually. He didn't, and after what happened on Thanksgiving this year, I'm kind of glad that I'm never going to have to speak to him again because I don't think I can forgive and look past something like this. The Thanksgiving incident. Usually, my parents host Thanksgiving at the house, but this year my brother decided he was going to do it at his place. Brandon is a pretty good cook, and his wife is pregnant, so he said that he wanted the honor of hosting everyone. He invited both Nick and me and specifically asked for Nick to be there, and we took it as a sign that maybe he was trying to finally give Nick a chance. So we accepted the invitation and showed up, having no idea about what was in store. Because, of course, as soon as we arrived, Brandon greeted us at the door, and he told me that I was welcome to come in, but he told me that Nick would have to go back home, unfortunately. Obviously, we were baffled, And then Brandon went on to explain that at the very last minute, he and his wife had decided that they were not only going to invite his family but also hers. His in-laws were already invited, but they decided to invite her extended family as well since she was pregnant and she wanted to see them. They live in the suburbs, so they don't usually visit, and they were making a whole thing out of this Thanksgiving dinner. The only problem was that his in-laws, with the exception of his wife's parents, were all kind of snobbish. My sister-in-law herself was just as much of a snob and an elitist as my brother was, so she looked down on Nick as well. Her parents were pleasant enough, so I didn't know where she got it from until I met the rest of her family at Brandon's wedding. All of them happened to be extremely lucky since they've had the good fortune of being born into a rich business family, and so they take great pride in that. Quite happily, Brandon told me and Nick at the door that he would like for Nick to go back home because it would be really embarrassing for him to introduce his brother-in-law to the rest of his wife's family, since that would inevitably lead to questions about him. So, just to avoid further humiliation, he told Nick to go home. I was obviously furious, and I started yelling at my brother without caring who was going to hear us. I know that he was doing this on purpose just because he wanted to insult Nick, and I was not going to stand for it because even if he had made last-minute invitations to the rest of his wife's family, which I highly doubt he had, he could have just told me and Nick that he didn't want us there. But he had made us drive all the way to his place just so that he could turn Nick away at the door. I told him that it was a very calculated move that he had made to insult my husband, and I told him he had no class. I knew that was exactly where it would hurt him, so that was what I said, and I was right because when I called him classless, he flared up almost instantly and told me that he did not want me attending the Thanksgiving dinner either, and he wanted me to leave with my dirty, illiterate cleaner husband. Brief context for that comment. Nick did have to take up a janitor job at a local store when he was in college along with a couple of more part-time jobs, so he could start saving up money to pay back the student loan that he had taken out. No shame in that, and calling Nick dirty and illiterate was literally nothing but a bunch of lies. He's just as educated as any of us. The only difference is that he went to a moderately good college and did not have enough money to afford the kind of colleges that my brother and I went to. Again, that's also nothing to feel shameful about, but for some reason, Brandon made it a point to bring it up. After he said that to Nick, there was no going back. I started cursing at him nonstop, and Nick actually had to intervene because Brandon told me that I had picked up his language, and I was about to get physical if I'm being very honest. I was not ashamed of Nick. I was just upset that Brandon even had the audacity to say things like that right in front of me. Anyway, by then the commotion had gotten a bit loud, and I guess my parents heard, so they came out. Once they figured out that we were fighting, they requested Nick to take me home and promised me that they would handle everything later. At that point, I was a little disappointed that they were not yelling at Brandon almost immediately because by then they should have known that he must have said something disgusting about Nick, and that's why I was acting like that. But I guess they had guests over, so they did not want to drag things out and embarrass themselves in front of them, which is why I had to go home. The inheritance. Once I got home, Nick calmed me down, and I ended up ranting to him for about an hour or so before I finally let it go and blocked Brandon everywhere. I was still fuming, but I knew that there was no point in it. I could not change my brother or his mindset, and I was sick of trying to do so. So it would have been better for me to just let him go and never speak to him again. I was kind of disappointed with my parents as well for not dealing with the situation on the spot, but I'm really glad that I did not block them because the next morning, they called me and told me that we needed to come over to my dad's office because I needed to sign some paperwork, which made me curious. So I agreed to it. I wasn't sure about the paperwork because when I asked them about it on the phone, they didn't elaborate, but I believe that even if I didn't deal with the paperwork, at least I would be able to speak to my parents and sort things out regarding Brandon. However, when I actually got to my dad's office, my mom was also present there, and they looked pretty serious. They did not even explain anything to me or Nick at first. They just told me to go through the paperwork, and if I found it agreeable, they wanted me to sign it then and there. So, I did go through it, and basically, it was paperwork to start the process of transferring ownership of my parents' law firm to me. I was shocked because for a really long time, I knew that my brother was set to inherit the firm after my parents retired. Just to be doubly sure, I asked my dad if he actually intended on leaving the firm to me and not Brandon, and he told me that he was sure about it because after what had happened last night, he had no intention of leaving anything to Brandon. To make it up to me and Nick, my parents wanted to leave their law firm to me. This was a huge deal because while I had also gone to law school and had a degree, I was not a practicing lawyer and hadn't been for the past 3 years. After 1 year, I got bored, and I decided to start my own business. I run a bakery now, which is quite different from running a law firm. Nick is in a management position at his company, but he's not a lawyer. Brandon, on the other hand, had been working for years under my father, and I knew that he expected to be inheriting the law firm after my parents retired, so this was going to come as a huge shock to him. I asked my parents if they were sure about this, but they told me that they were. Because apparently, after all the guests had left, my parents had confronted them about the commotion that had taken place with me, Nick, and Brandon. He and his wife were very casual about the entire thing. They did not bother to hide any of the awful things that Brandon and his wife had said about Nick right to my face, and they actually seemed to believe that there was nothing wrong with what they had done. So, my parents were naturally very upset, and they had asked Brandon and his wife to call us and apologize to us, but they had refused. This is why now they had decided to take the step because they wanted nothing to do with Brandon anymore, and that obviously meant that they were not going to be leaving the firm to him. But they were nearing the age of retirement. They did need somebody to take over eventually. So, they had decided that I would take over because even though I was not a practicing lawyer, I was still their daughter, and at least this way the company would still stay in the family. They told me that after the incident from last night, they had come into work extra early, drawn up these papers in 2 hours. They already had a template because they had drawn up separate papers for my brother first. After I went through it, I spoke to Nick in private, and then we decided to sign off on the paperwork so we could start the process of transferring ownership of the firm to me. My parents wanted to celebrate the process, but I wasn't feeling comfortable about it because I knew that even though I did want to get back at Brandon for what he had said about Nick, I was not sure if this was the right way to go through with it because I wasn't even interested in being an attorney. That's why I quit practicing after a year. He, on the other hand, really loved his job, and I knew that he had been looking forward to leading the firm for a really long time. So, stealing that opportunity from him seemed kind of unethical. But then I thought about it, and I realized that I was not stealing anything from him, because my parents had offered it to me on a silver platter, and I was just accepting it. Still, in the back of my head, I felt very uneasy about what had just happened, so I did not feel like it and I just went back home after that. Brandon's reaction. Nick and I didn't exactly talk about it, but then yesterday my parents told me that they wanted me to come to work because obviously I would have to rejoin. Then yesterday, Brandon and I finally came face to face when I walked into the workplace, and my parents announced in front of everyone that I was going to be taking over everything in a couple of months after my parents retired. Everyone just looked confused because obviously people expected Brandon to be taking over, and my brother didn't exactly say anything, but I could see that he was not happy about it. I guess he didn't want to make a public scene, so he didn't say anything at that moment, but later on in the day, crap hit the ceiling. In the evening, after I had come back home, Brandon called me from a burner phone and told me that he knew I was doing this on purpose, but he had had enough of this, and he wanted me to stop our parents from leaving the firm to me. The way he was speaking to me, his tone was very entitled and bossy, and I did not like that. So I told him that I was not going to do anything like that because ultimately our parents had asked me to take over, and if they found me fit to do it, I didn't see why I would have to decline. Besides, he had brought this on to himself by being horrible to me and Nick, to be more specific, so I did not have to feel bad for him. And I told him that I was going to take over the firm, and he was going to have to work under me, and if he couldn't stand that, then he should just quit while he was ahead. At that point, he started screaming at me, and he told me that whatever I was doing was extremely unethical, and he was going to make sure that he sued me and our parents. He said that I had no right to be destroying his future just because he had insulted my husband, especially considering the fact that whatever he had said about Nick was not even false. That made me upset, and all of a sudden, I was screaming at him, and things just turned into a shouting match. We were cursing at each other, saying horrible things to one another, and it was all just really bad. In the end, before he hung up, he just told me that what I was doing to him was way more disgusting and pathetic than what he had done, and he couldn't believe that I was being so unethical and selfish. He told me that he was going to resign from his job if that's what I wanted, but he was also going to make sure that he sued us for being unfair to him. While I don't think that he has a legal leg to stand on, I also don't think that what I'm doing is right. I have spoken to Nick about it over and over again, and he has told me that I have nothing to worry about, and even my parents have reassured me that I'm not doing anything wrong. But still, I can't bring myself to feel like what I'm doing is okay, because even when he was yelling at me on the phone, I could tell that Brandon was just devastated by everything. I'm just at a loss of words right now, and I feel like I really need some help. So, AITA for agreeing to take over my parents' law firm, which my brother was supposed to inherit after they retired. Update 1. So, the comments have given me a lot to think about. First and foremost, I feel like I need to be clear about one thing. I do not enjoy being a lawyer. I never enjoyed it. I just did it because that's what my parents wanted, and I was not particularly ambitious about anything else back then. I did have a knack for baking and stuff, but never thought about taking it up as a career. Now, of course, I feel differently about the whole thing, and I really love what I do. I also know for a fact that if I do take over the company, I'm going to have to give up my business because there just won't be enough time for me to do everything, and I'm not sure if I want to do that. And when it really comes down to it, I guess that's what I'd been feeling uneasy about. The fact that I was going to have to give up everything that I had built from scratch in the past couple of years. I'll have to agree that my bakery business is nowhere as successful as my parents' law firm, but this is what brings me happiness, and the thought of giving it all up just to get back at my brother, it seems very petty now that I think about it. I have spoken to Nick about it, and I have told him how I feel, and he told me that if I don't want to take over the law firm and go back to working there, then I don't have to. I can just speak to my parents, and I can put an end to the process. But at the same time, I really don't want Brandon to get away with everything that he has done and end up inheriting the law firm anyway. The one thing that my parents have been very clear about is that they want the firm to stay within the family. It's kind of nepotistic, but that's what they want, and I can't deny them that. So, if it's not me, it's going to be Brandon, and that's not something that I'm fine with. But I don't know how to communicate this with my parents, so I haven't told them anything about what I've been feeling. Besides, it also seems very petty, equally as petty as taking over the company even though I don't want to, just so that he doesn't get to inherit it, if not more. But Nick has told me that whatever I'm feeling is completely normal because the situation between Brandon and me has deteriorated to a point of no return. It might have improved if he had apologized to me at any point, but he hasn't, and I know that even if he does apologize, it's going to be meaningless because he doesn't mean it. So, that's that, and I'm really confused about how to put this through to my parents as of now. Update 2. So, I finally did it. I ripped off the Band-Aid, and I finally made the decision to talk to my parents about what I had been feeling. It's been 8 days since Thanksgiving, and a significant amount of time has passed. I think before the process went any further, I knew that I had to gather up my courage, and I had to speak to my parents and tell them that I did not want to take over the company. It was going to come as a shock to them, especially as I had just signed off on the paperwork a week ago, but I had to do it. So, I invited them over for dinner last night, and I finally told them everything with Nick by my side. Initially, they had reacted exactly the way that I expected them to. They were very upset about it, and they told me that if I wasn't sure about it, then I shouldn't have signed the paperwork in the first place, and I had to sit through a lecture about indecisiveness. But it was well-deserved, so I didn't say anything. Later on, though, they seemed to understand the dilemma that I was going through, and they told me that if I wanted to take over the company but not partake in any of the legal operations, I could still do that. However, I just didn't want to be a part of any of that in any capacity because, in all honesty, I just found the kind of stuff very boring. I tried to be transparent with my parents, so while they did not seem happy about my decision, they told me that it was fine. Then came the more difficult part because I also had to tell them exactly why I had accepted the position in the first place, and I had to tell them that I did not want Brandon to inherit the firm. That came as a bit of a shock to them because I'm usually not a petty or vindictive person, but honestly, I couldn't stand Brandon anymore, and his behavior has been getting on my nerves for a really long time. The Thanksgiving incident was just the last nail in the coffin, and I made it very clear to my parents that I would be very upset if Brandon, in spite of everything, ended up taking over the company eventually anyway. Of course, my parents heard me out and told me that they could understand how I was feeling, and they agreed with me as well. It would look very weak for them to ask Brandon to take over the company, especially after what happened recently, and they had announced that I was going to be taking over in front of everyone in the office. They did not want their employees to mistrust them or something, so there were a lot of problems to deal with already, but the biggest one was that my parents wanted the company to stay in the family, and the only way to make sure that would be to ask Brandon to take over instead of me. But there were a lot of problems with that as well. For example, after the Thanksgiving incident, Brandon had chosen to ignore our parents for almost 3 days, because of which work had suffered. He hadn't shown up back then because of a personal fight that he had had with our parents the previous night, and that was very unprofessional of him. And of course, when he finally did show up, my parents announced that I was going to take over the company, and after that, he stopped showing up at work once again but hasn't even resigned. So, their relationship with Brandon is pretty strained at the moment, and they don't know, even if they do ask him to take over once again, whether he's going to agree to it or not. So that's one. And of course, on top of that, it's going to make them look really weak and indecisive. Apart from Brandon, they can't even think about anybody else they would be willing to leave the firm to. I tried them to get to think about serious employees who would love the firm and be as sincere with their work as my parents had been, and they had a couple of names, but I could tell that in their hearts, they were not ready to accept that somebody from outside the family was going to take over the firm that they had built. I knew for a fact that I couldn't just force them into doing something like this within one meeting, and I would have to convince them over the span of a couple of weeks at the very least. So, I dropped the topic eventually, but I'm pretty sure that at the end of the day, they're going to have to pick somebody from outside of the family because I'm not interested and Brandon is not going to be coming back, that's for sure. I obviously feel terrible that I have put my parents in such a difficult position, and I feel like I shouldn't have agreed to sign off on the paperwork in the first place without thinking it through. I made a very hasty decision, and now we are all paying for it. But then I'm happy that at least Brandon will not be getting away with all the horrible things that he had said about Nick, not just on Thanksgiving but for so many years. It's about time that somebody held him accountable for his behavior, and I'm glad that I get to do it. I know for a fact that he had really loved and valued his job, but now he's going to be losing it just because of his own arrogance. Even now, he hasn't apologized to me or Nick, and at this point, I honestly don't even want it. Update 3. So, it's been 2 weeks since my last update, and thankfully, my parents have finally named a different successor. He's a very diligent employee. He has been working with them for years, and granted he's not family, but he's almost as good as family. It took me a really long time to convince my parents that it would be a good idea to name somebody who was not family in my place, because ultimately there was really no guarantee that the firm would always stay within the family. Because what if their grandkids did not want to become lawyers? Then, inevitably, the company would be passed down to somebody outside of the family, and then they wouldn't even know how to control the situation. So, at least now, this would be their own choice because I am not interested. Brandon does not deserve it, and so it would be fair to let somebody who was actually interested and had worked hard enough to take over eventually. Took them a while to wrap their heads around that idea, but finally they did agree, and they have spoken to him. So, they're going to start the paperwork on that soon and scrap everything that had to do with me. Brandon, on the other hand, emailed our parents his resignation a couple of days ago and said that he was going to be starting his own law firm. He bragged about how he was getting his in-laws to fund his ambitious project because he had promised us that we were going to regret the way we had treated him. Well, shiver me timbers. I just really don't care what he does anymore. Whatever relationship we had as siblings has been severed now, and I don't think that I have any interest in repairing it. Nick and I are happy together, and my parents are also content with the situation, so there is nothing else that matters to me. Of course, at some points of time, I do feel bad about the fact that Brandon and I used to be so close as kids, but now we don't even want to see each other. I really can't help feeling that way occasionally, but then I remember the way he treated Nick and how much he has changed from the little guy who used to be my best friend in the whole world. There was a point of time when it was just the two of us against the world, but now he's not the same person that he used to be, and neither am I. Nick is my priority, and if anybody insults or humiliates him, I don't want anything to do with that person, and that goes for everyone, including my own family. So yes, I do feel bad about the way things have turned out, but I don't feel bad about anything that I have done. People can call me petty, people can call me vengeful, but at the end of the day, I know that I'm just trying to be a good partner. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Wife said she was okay not having kids. Now she wants her own baby and says I should have married the woman who assaulted me to give our son a real mom. 6 years ago, I, 28M, got drunk at a friend's wedding. A woman, Anna, 39F, whom I had rejected multiple times throughout the night, ended up forcing herself on me while I was nearly passed out. It was a whole mess, and I fell into a deep depression. Things got worse when Anna showed up at my door after a few weeks, saying she was pregnant. I begged her to have an abortion and leave me alone, but my dad and stepmother welcomed her into our house like nothing had happened. I never wanted to have kids, so when this happened, I was clear with Anna that I didn't want anything to do with her, but I'd pay child support. I also cut contact with my dad for supporting her. After a few months, my son was born, and Anna had just disappeared. Nobody knew where she went, or they didn't want to tell me. My dad also refused to help because I had cut him off, so I was on my own. To be honest, I fell in love with my baby right away. Seeing him fight to survive and then holding him in my arms was the happiest moment of my life. While it was hard, I made it work, just the two of us. Then, 3 years ago, I met my wife, Claire, 26F. We dated for 1 year and have been married for 2. Even when we were just dating, she was always perfect and she adored my son, Archie, 5M now. She would play with him and read him stories and never said anything bad about him. She knew what had happened, but she was so loving and understanding, and I thought I had won the lottery by meeting her. The same happened when I met Claire's family. Everyone was so welcoming, and they loved Archie so much. They offered to babysit him and even took him on vacation so Claire and I could have a weekend to ourselves. A few weeks ago, I told Claire that I wanted to have a toy so we could have a better sex life. She asked me if I was really sure, and when I said yes, she got very quiet and changed the subject. Now, even before we got married, I was very clear that I didn't want any more children. At the time, she said she was fine with that because we already had Archie. I knew she was upset, so I brought it up constantly until she finally admitted that she was hoping I changed my mind so we could have another child. Claire said she understood why I didn't want kids in the first place due to my childhood, but that I had become a perfect dad to Archie and I'd be a perfect dad for our second child too. She also said she had asked him if he wanted a little brother or sister, and he had been very excited about it. I got upset when she said this and accused her of trying to manipulate my son, so we ended up having a big fight about it. The next day, she apologized, but she still wanted me to think it over. She said she'd support me no matter what I decided, but that this was important to her. I told her that I was hurt because she had never mentioned this before, and she just said that she was allowed to change her mind. Finally, she told me that we should talk with her parents so I could hear from them before making a decision. I admit I freaked out because I didn't want to discuss my sex life with my in-laws, but she assured me that she had just told them because they were close and she was looking for advice on how to bring it up to me. Anyway, last night we had dinner with her parents. We visit them every other Thursday since that's my FIL's day off, and it was a disaster. I explained how I'd never wanted kids until Archie was born, and how even then he was the exception. For their part, they told me how much Claire wanted to have a child of her own and how this could be good for all of us. Where things got messy was when they said they wanted to have their first grandchild. I told them that Claire and I had been talking about her adopting Archie, and my MAL said, but he still wouldn't be my real grandson. They also said how they loved my son, but they couldn't love him like a real family member because they were not related by blood. Finally, my wife said she was having second thoughts about the adoption because Archie already had a mom, and she didn't think she'd be able to bond with him like a real mother. So that's also why she wanted to have a child of her own. I was devastated, but I didn't want to make a scene in front of my in-laws, so I just told them I'd think about it and to give me some time. So now I'm sitting at home thinking that I don't really know Claire. I didn't know she felt this way about my son and wondering if she had been pretending all this time. If we have another kid, I believe she and her family will just ignore Archie in favor of their real grandchild. And if we don't have another child, I fear she will just resent us or even become abusive towards my son. But at the same time, I don't want to throw away an otherwise perfect relationship, and I really love Claire. Would I be the A if I divorce my wife over this? I don't know if I'm overreacting or if this relationship can be saved. Any advice would also be welcome since I don't have anyone else I can talk to right now. Edit. Thanks everyone for the comments. I haven't been able to reply to everyone, but I'd like to answer some questions. 1. Did I talk to my wife about not having children before we got married? Yes, we had the discussion at least 3 times, and she always mentioned she was okay with it. 2. Do I treat her like a nanny or there is money involved? No, I earn more than she does, but she still has a good job. She does work from home, but Archie is still in daycare because I want him to socialize with other children, and I didn't want her work to be affected by having to look after a toddler all the time. 3. Will I get therapy? I've had a therapist for 4 years now. Archie is also in therapy. 4. Why didn't I have a $text $$ years ago? I got no excuses here. I'm just an idiot. 5. Why did I get married after only 1 year of dating? We were both in love and rushed into things. I'm also an idiot for this, apparently. 6. Did I get a DNA test? WTF. I didn't get a paternity test right away when he was born because I didn't care. I had already put my name on his birth certificate, and after Anna left, I just wanted to take care of him. I did eventually get a paternity test done. Spoiler alert. He is mine, but it was mostly for legal purposes since I wanted to take him out of the country for a job opportunity. 7. What happened to Anna? Who knows? I never heard from her after she left. My dad said he didn't know anything, and my friends from the wedding said they didn't know where she went either. 8. Did I report Anna? I tried. Unfortunately, I grew up in a country with some outdated ideas, and I wasn't taken seriously by the police. Finally, I know that my in-laws were biased and that they would take Claire's side. I knew that when I agreed to have dinner with them, but I genuinely wanted to know if there was something Claire wasn't telling me. I was, and still am, confused and full of doubts about the whole kids thing, so I wanted to understand where she was coming from and what she was feeling. I just never imagined they felt the way they did about my son. Comments where the OP has replied. Comment. Sure. Sansaurus. If a post involves a stepmom, assume the absolute worst and tear her to shreds. Seriously, in her heart she doesn't see Archie as her son and doesn't feel fulfilled as a mother. But she and her family have loved and treated Archie well enough that OP didn't notice, unless he's completely oblivious to the world around him. She's not abusing Archie or doing anything crazy. It's kind of super fucking natural and normal to want to create your own child, lol. OP. You could be right that I missed something, and I've been trying to think back in case I have missed any signs, but I can't think of anything. When we moved in together, she wanted to pull Archie out of daycare saying she could look after him since she works from home. Even though that didn't happen, she still picks him up every day after her own work is finished and she spends a couple hours with him until I get home. As for her family, I wasn't kidding when I said they were the ones offering to babysit Archie. Another example is that when we invited the in-laws to dinner at our house, my FIL would basically ignore everyone and would just play or watch movies with Archie. That's why I'm also confused about this. I literally didn't see it coming. Update August 10th, 2024. I appreciate everyone who took the time to read my previous post and commented with their advice. I was happy to see so many people sharing their own experiences as stepparents or stepchildren, and those who tried to put themselves in my wife's shoes. It gave me a new perspective, and that helped a lot. I also saw some people asking for an update, so here it is. Since Archie plays football every Saturday, I asked a friend of ours whose son is also on the team if she could look after Archie for a while. I wanted to have this conversation with Claire without my son present in case we started arguing again. So we just headed home to talk after the game ended. I know a lot of people said I should just divorce my wife, both to protect my son and to let her move on, but please don't be mad at me. When we sat down to talk, I wasn't ready to give up on my marriage just yet. At that moment, I was willing to compromise with Claire about a second child as long as we got couples therapy to address her and her family's feelings towards Archie. Even after the initial fight when I said I wanted a $text $$ I was mostly confused about what to do since I just wanted my family to be happy. Anyway, I started by asking her to explain why and when she had changed her mind. Claire started to apologize right away, and she told me that she had always dreamed of having a big family. She said that she tried to convince herself that she could accept not having children because she really loved me and she also loved Archie. She admitted to lying when I had asked her about it because she didn't want to break up, and she felt I was giving her an ultimatum of either choosing having kids or choosing me. I never intended it to be one. I just didn't think it was fair for any of us to be in a relationship if our goals didn't align. She also admitted that she had always been hoping I would change my mind once I saw what an excellent mom she was to Archie. What surprised me the most is that apparently my MIL tried to convince her not to get married because it wasn't fair of her to expect me to change. Claire also told me it was Emmael's idea to babysit Archie and do all those things together so my wife could bond with him and get used to the idea that he may end up being our only child. When I asked her why her mom had made the comments about blood being important, Claire said she had asked her parents to say that to convince me why it was important for her to have her own kids. I told her how hurt I had been by what they said, and also when she told me she had changed her mind about the adoption. Claire said she was just scared that one day Archie would want to reconnect with his birth mother and that he wouldn't love her anymore. Apparently, she had been reading a lot of stories from other stepparents who had been cast aside, especially when the birth parents showed up again or if there was a divorce involved. Her anxiety got worse around a year ago. According to Claire, she had always introduced herself as Archie's stepmom when she picked him up from the daycare because she didn't want to take Anna's place. I lost my patience and reminded her that Anna had abandoned us, so there was no place to take. At this point, we started arguing and going in circles. She accused me of not understanding how hard it is to be a stepparent, and I told her she was fighting against windmills. After we calmed down a bit, she told me she got even more scared of being replaced when Archie started asking about his mom. She also felt guilty because she was sure he only asked because she kept correcting everyone about the whole mother/stepmother thing. She also said I made it worse because I didn't tell him the truth about Anna and tried to sugarcoat things by telling him that his mom felt guilty because he had been born very sick and she didn't want to see him suffer. Honestly, I just didn't know what to tell him because I didn't want him to feel sad about being abandoned. Claire accused me of still caring about Anna, WTF, and that's why I didn't want to paint her in a bad light. When I told her I just panicked and made up a lie in that moment, she said I should have just refused to answer and take Archie to a therapist. We did get him one the same month. That's when Claire said I should have tried to find Anna, so we could have split custody and Archie could be with his real mom. I admit I lost it and started yelling at her that Anna was just a horrible person and that if it were up to me, she'd never see Archie. She assaulted me. She had tried to manipulate me when she got pregnant. She had abandoned my son right after he was born, and after all these years, she had never bothered to reach out. Claire yelled back saying I couldn't understand what a woman goes through and that maybe she left because of PPD and that I made it worse by just giving up and moving to another country where Anna couldn't find me. I said that wasn't the reason why we left and she knew it. I also told her how everyone who knew me back home had contact information on my address, so it's not like I was hiding. What finally broke me is that she said it was my fault that Anna left because I refused to step up and do the right thing by marrying Anna. She tried to apologize right away and said she didn't mean it, but I just told her to leave and that I wanted a divorce. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I just locked myself in Archie's room and started to cry like a baby until she left. She just packed some stuff and later sent me a text saying she'd be staying with her parents. The rest of the day was a blur. I went to pick up my son and briefly told my friend I was getting a divorce. She and her wife hugged me and told me they would support us in any way they could, especially if I needed someone to look after Archie. I spent the rest of the day with him, and we decided to have a pizza night, just the two of us. We ordered pizza, played with his new toys, and watched some movies until he fell asleep. Since I can't sleep, I thought I'd write this update to vent or something. I feel like my life just imploded and I'm so heartbroken. I don't even know how Archie is going to take it, so that's also going to be hard. Anyway, I guess this is my final update since there's nothing else to say. Thank you again for all the advice. Comments where the OP has replied. Comment 1. You gave her one more chance than many of us would, and she blew it in the most clear-cut and worst way possible. I cannot imagine someone who promised to be your lifelong partner taking your rapist's/a lifelong stranger's side over yours. Don't feel bad about divorce. You are doing the right thing not just for yourself but for your son. That woman wanted to invite the rapist who abandoned him back into his life so she could crush his heart again. By the way, I hope you have / will go after Anna for child support. Comment 2. Stand strong. Up. She has made it clear that Archie would be treated differently. Even after trying to backpedal about the blood ties and doubts about adoption, she still brought up how Archie should be with his mother at least part-time, and that you should have tried harder to keep her around to be Archie's mom. She's saying she wants her own child. And her saying you should have stepped up and married the woman that assaulted you? That's just vile. Assault is still exactly that, regardless of what gender the victim is. You aren't any less of a man for not just getting over it and marrying your assailant. If anything, I commend you for standing strong, both for yourself and for your son. Protect your son. Since she has been manipulating him about a sibling, God knows what else she might have been saying to him. This is not someone you want around your son. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Caught my long-distance GF at college having sex with a classmate in the locker room, so I recorded a video and sent it to the dean, which got them kicked out of school. I, 27 male, met my girlfriend, 26 female, in high school, and we had been together since our senior year. I moved around a lot growing up, so I transferred to my girlfriend's high school senior year. We hit it off, and we had practically been inseparable ever since. When it came time to go to college, we initially went to separate schools. She wanted to study nursing, and I was studying engineering. During the first semester, I wasn't fitting in with my curriculum. I was generally unhappy with the school that I'd chosen. My girlfriend was the one to suggest that I consider transferring to her school. I took the tours and I spoke to some of the students and professors, and it seemed like it would be a good fit for me. So I transferred for the spring semester and got everything started there. We stayed together all through college, and we even moved in together after both of us got jobs right after school. I was working for a tech company, and she was working in the pediatric ward of a hospital. After a year, her job had taken a toll on her, and she was very depressed. She didn't like to talk about it, but I couldn't even imagine a lot of the things that she saw in a pediatric ward. She told me that she had been interested in going back to school so she could teach instead. We both thought it was the best way for her to still do what she loved, but without having to sacrifice her mental health. She applied to several schools, and she got into almost all of them. One of the schools that she applied to was one of the top in the industry. It was prestigious, and her getting in was a big deal. She only really applied on a whim, but once she was accepted, we both knew that was where she had to go. The only difficulty with the decision was that that school was in a different state. I couldn't move because of work, so we decided to give long distance a try. She rented an apartment in the city, finding another student enrolled in the program that she could share it with. We had planned on visiting each other often and having video calls so we could stay in touch. For the first couple of months of the program, everything was going great with us. I hadn't had the time to go and visit her because I was busy with my own work, but we video chatted several times a week, and we were texting each other all the time. However, I started to notice some changes in our relationship. At first, I just assumed that it was because of the distance. I figured there must have been some adjustment period that we needed. But eventually, she stopped wanting to video chat so much because she was saying that she was slammed with schoolwork. I understood what she was saying. It was hard to adjust to, but I wanted to make sure she was still keeping up with her schoolwork without distraction. When she first enrolled in the program, we were told that her fall semester would end in the middle of December. Then her spring semester was supposed to start in the middle of January. I had been looking forward to our month-long break together. It has been a very long time since I saw my girlfriend that I wanted to spend the holidays with her. The week before she was supposed to return home, she called me and told me that there had been a change of plans. Apparently, a job that she had on campus offered a position over the break that would pay more than what she made during the semester. Because we were renting 2 apartments for her to go to school, we figured it would be the smart thing for her to stay and work. The week passed, and I was missing her more than ever. One night, I was scrolling through her social media page just so I could look at pictures of her, and I noticed somebody was commenting on all of her posts. When I say all of them, I mean all of them. My girlfriend was very attractive, and she had a substantial following on Instagram. It wasn't anything along the lines of being an influencer, but she would get people she didn't know messaging her all the time. However, the person commenting seemed friendly with her. She hadn't posted any pictures of him on her page, but there were pictures of both of them together on his. They were pictures that could have been 2 friends hanging out, but at the same time it looked like it could be more. From what I could tell, they were alone in most of them. When I looked at some of the dates of the posts, I felt my heart break a little. In an effort to hurt myself even more, I opened my text messages with my girlfriend and looked for some dates that she told me she couldn't video chat because she was busy with schoolwork. I compared them to some of the posts on his page and they matched. She had lied to me and told me that she was busy with schoolwork so she could go and do things with this man. Right away, I knew something was off. If she wanted to hang out with a friend, I would have understood. But she didn't even tell me about this guy. There had to be something more going on with them. The next time I talked to her, I confronted her about it. I asked her who he was and why she never told me about him and why she lied about being busy. She told me that it hadn't crossed her mind to tell me about every friend that she had. I tried to explain to her that it was different because this was a man, but she told me that it wasn't because he was gay. I froze when she said that. I felt like I was just silly for even thinking something could have happened. A few weeks passed, and I decided that I was just going to surprise my girlfriend for the holidays. It had been too long since we'd seen each other, and I wanted to visit her. I didn't mention anything about it. In fact, I told her that I was planning on going to my parents so she wouldn't assume anything. I got to her apartment, and I tried to buzz the door so she could let me in, but there was no answer. I waited for some time, but I started to think that maybe surprising her wasn't the best idea. It was freezing outside, so I made my way to her job. I figured I could surprise her there and then grab her keys so I could wait in the apartment for her. She worked at a student center, but because there weren't many students on campus, she was supposed to be doing clerical work and organizing things. When I arrived at the building, I walked through the door and looked around for her everywhere, but I couldn't find her. Eventually, I ran into another worker, and I asked her where my girlfriend was. She told me that she was in one of the locker rooms cleaning with the man I saw on Instagram. She pointed me in the direction, and I made my way over there. My heart was racing because I was so excited to see my girlfriend again. As soon as I opened the door to the room, all of the excitement disappeared. I heard a shower running and various moans and giggles coming from the direction of it. Unmistakably, it was my girlfriend's voice. I heard a man's voice whispering and telling her to be quiet, too. I didn't know if I should go forward or not. Did I really need to see what was happening? I was frozen for a moment while I tried to decide. I was shocked that she would cheat on me, and even more so that she was doing it in public. My girlfriend had never been someone who was interested in stuff like that. It was unlike her. It hit me while I was standing there that they were on school property doing something they definitely shouldn't have been, while they were supposed to be working, nonetheless. I didn't know if I would ever do anything with it, but I thought I should get evidence of it. I pulled out my phone and recorded as I walked closer and got both of them in the frame. I recorded for about 10 seconds while they both stood in the shower having sex. Neither of them even knew that I was there. I walked out and left the building without saying anything else. I considered my options from there. I wanted to tell her that she could just stay in the city and break up with her, but that didn't seem like enough. I looked online at her school's website and found the contact information for the dean of students. I emailed them, letting them know that I caught 2 of the students engaging in explicit activities in a public setting in a school building. At first, I got an out-of-office email, but a few days later, I got an official response from the dean. They wanted to set up a time to video chat with me so they could get more information. In the days that I was waiting, I decided to text my girlfriend and tell her that it was over between us. She seemed confused, but I told her that I knew what happened and that I wanted her to be out of the apartment completely. I packed up her things, and her sister contacted me to set up a time to come and get them after the holidays. I had my meeting with the dean, where I showed her the evidence that I collected and I gave her the names of the students. She told me that they would be reprimanded for their actions. 2 days later, I got a furious phone call from my ex-girlfriend telling me that I had ruined her life. Apparently, both of them were expelled from the university. She was forced to leave the school, and so was her new boyfriend. Her sister tried calling me and telling me that I was a jerk for what I did, but I just hung up the phone. Now I'm trying to focus on moving on and being happy again with other relationships, but it is much harder than I thought. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Future mother-in-law insisted I wear her 50-year-old wedding dress. When I refused, my fiancé took her side and then slapped me. I, 26F, and my fiancé, 27M, got engaged in February 2024. We are planning our wedding to be in March next year, on the day of when we first met. We began planning the wedding in May 2024. The theme is light blue and white. It's important to know that my fiancé is an only child. A couple weeks ago, I was shopping for wedding dresses with my mom and sister when I found this lovely dress, and it needed only a little bit of tailoring to fit me. When I sent photos to my fiancé, he thought it was beautiful too. Now, here's the problem. My future ML was over, and when my fiancé showed her the dress, she immediately called me. I ignored her as I was still with my mom and sister. When I got back to me and my fiancé's house, my future ML was waiting for me. When I walked through the door, she immediately got up from the couch and accused me of lying, claiming I had promised to wear her dress. I never had. This was such an out-of-the-blue thing for my future ML, as we normally get on really well. I told her I had never promised her anything. She then yelled at me, calling me a liar and that I didn't deserve to get married to my fiancé. I was so taken aback by that. I just walked away. I have done so much to make sure this woman likes me, and now she doesn't because I don't want to wear her wedding dress that went out of style 50 years ago. Once I had stormed off to my room, my fiancé joined. Once he had sent his mother back to her house, he asked what had happened, and I explained my side of the story about how I was just suddenly accused of all these lies I never said. He then explained his mom's side of things, which were that apparently when I first started dating my fiancé, my future ML had shown her wedding dress, and I had said I would love to get married in that. I started dating my fiancé 5 years ago. I honestly don't ever remember saying that, but it was so long ago. I might have, but I don't think so, as the dress isn't the prettiest. The next day, I woke up with messages from my future MIL saying that I'm such a liar and that my fiancé shouldn't marry a liar. I'm going to be honest. I teared up as I read those messages because I tried so hard to be liked by her, and I thought I was. I told my fiancé about the messages, and he said that she's probably just hurt that I don't want to wear her dress. But it's my wedding. Why can't I wear what I want? Please tell me your opinions. Update 1. Hi, I'm not sure how to start this, but I sat my fiancé down and talked to him about my FIL. When he finally gave me the time to actually talk, I mentioned how I wanted to wear my own dress to my wedding, and he once again brought up how it was also for our parents, WTF. I explained calmly that it was a union of us, not our parents, and unless his mom wanted to pay for our entire wedding, it was our wedding. Then I said how he found the dress I originally wanted beautiful, and he only changed his mind when his mom raised the issue. He said he only said it was beautiful because that's what I would have wanted to hear, and he found it ugly. I didn't react to the last comment, and instead I brought up how I could wear something else of his mom's, and he completely shut down that idea, saying his mom offered the dress and I couldn't take something from her if she didn't offer it, and that I should be grateful she offered her dress. I admit I was angry at this and replied with, "Am I marrying you or your mother?" When I asked him this, he yelled at me, saying that what his mom was asking wasn't a big deal and that I was blowing this out of proportion. After he said I was making a big deal out of my wedding dress, I stormed out and called my mom, explaining the whole situation. When I went back downstairs, he was gone, and he texted me explaining he's going to be staying with his mom until I come to my senses. I'm now rethinking my whole relationship as I can't marry him if I'm also marrying his mother, and I'm not going to be one of those people talking about my horrible MIL, even though I sort of am. Comments where the OP has replied. Commenter, NTA. Honestly, I don't understand why women think the dress is worth saving. Most younger women have no intention of using their mother's old dress. So why do they think their daughter will use theirs? I get it was traditional to pass it down in the family, but that was when they were all handmade by the family and making a new fancy one was a big deal. OP. It wasn't made by a family member. It's purely just her dress. No sentimental value besides being her dress. My fiancé says it's up to me, but he'd like it if I wore her dress. Commenter. You have a fiancé problem more than a MIL problem. He should have your back. Does he always take her side? P. Nothing like this has happened before. My MIL and I got along quite well before this. Now, I'm not sure we could ever get along again. Commenter. Oh, come on. Your MIL sounds irrational, manipulative, and controlling. If she's like this before you get married, best of luck to you after the wedding. She's not likely to change, and your fiancé seems like a mommy's boy. NTA, but have a real good think about your future. Is it possible that MIL has been hiding her true self all this time? Because people don't tend to become so manipulative overnight. P. This whole thing has changed my opinion on her. I just don't understand how it all happened. That is possible, but we haven't had any conflicts like this. So maybe she wasn't hiding. She was just never given the opportunity to show her true self. Update 2. August 29th, 2024. Thank you all for the comments, I appreciate it so much. I talked to my mom and she said that my fiancé is acting weird and immature. Yesterday, my fiancé's mom called me explaining that we need to talk, and I agreed. She started off saying how I was going back on a promise and she was hurt by that. I never got the chance to defend myself before she said she is willing to move past it if I wear her dress. I completely shut down that idea and expressed how it was my day and I want to wear what I want. I then offered that I could wear something else of hers if she wants that. She didn't. She wants me to wear her dress. I tried again to explain how I wasn't comfortable wearing her dress and I never promised to wear it, and it might have been one of my fiancé's ex-girlfriends. She, however, didn't take this and blew up at me through the phone, calling me a liar, unworthy, and a witch. I hung up on her and blocked her number. Then my fiancé texted me saying it wasn't fair to yell at his mother about the dress and I'm acting so immature. But she was the one who blew up at me. Then I texted my fiancé to meet me at our house to talk things out. He refused, saying he would come tomorrow, so now I'm waiting for him to show up. Update 3. August 30th, 2024. Hello everyone again. Thank you for the kind words and comments. I appreciate it so much and didn't expect it to sort of blow up, and I wish I could reply to all of you. I talked with my fiancé about his childish behavior and how I was angry at his mom and him for trying to get me to wear the dress. He tried to talk, but I quickly cut him off and continued saying how it was no longer about the dress and it was how he took his mother's side over mine. He wasn't happy with this, of course, and said he was only taking the side which was right. However, I disagreed with this and said a dress was a huge factor of a wedding and that I wouldn't wear something I wasn't comfortable with. And then I again brought up how he should be backing me, not his mother, if we are to get married. He got super pissed off at me for that, as I said, if, instead of when. He started saying how I was going to cancel our wedding just because of a stupid dress and how all this must be some joke. I stood firm and told him that this whole thing has got me questioning whether I want to marry him. He once again, surprise surprise, tried to storm out. I followed him and told him he had to talk with me or I'm ending it. He whipped around and slapped me. I stood there in shock as he slammed out the front door and ran back to his mommy. Safe to say I am not marrying this man and I am texting him just that. Thank you so much for all your comments. I can't explain how much you have all helped me. Hopefully, I can find a man and marry him in less than a year so my beautiful planning doesn't get wasted. Comments where the OP has replied. Commenter. He slapped you? Oh hell no. He thinks you're being petty? Show him petty. Press charges against this mama's boy and tell him to fuck off. You dodged 2 bullets. OP. I'm definitely going to press charges for assault. Any part of me that loved him still got slapped right out, literally. Commenter. Oh my god. You are so fortunate to have seen his true colors before you married him. I know numerous women whose husband's personality did a 180 after getting married. I know this is an incredibly emotional time for you, but remember to be grateful that you were saved from marrying an abuser. OP. I can't believe it was 5 years down the drain. Shame he ended up like that through no fault of my own. Update August 4th, 30th, 2024. Hello again. This one will be a bit of a short update. Again, thank you for all the kind words, and some of the not so kind. This morning I went to the police station and filed for a restraining order, which will then be taken to court. I have taken photos of the mark on my cheek from him slapping me and video footage of him coming and leaving my house. Hopefully all goes well and I can leave him and his crazy mom behind me. I'm going to use the wedding venue to host myself an early birthday party and going with my sister. I took your advice and unblocked him and his mommy, which I then quickly had to mute as his mom blew up my phone. I texted my ex-fiancé calling things off and that he is an asshole. He replied with saying he's sorry and bombarding my phone with messages asking me to forgive him. Sorry for the short update. Will probably be the last one for a while. Again, thank you for the comments and support. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.